I've got it down. Three.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here this morning. We have a great meeting planned. This is, of course, the Board of County Commission meeting. It's a regular meeting. We've got quite a bit of business this morning. Just a couple of things on the agenda this morning. We do have a number of appointments, a couple of resignations. We do have an opportunity to talk about suicide prevention. We have a report as well as a proclamation. We have some grants to discuss and potentially accept, and we have an item on what's called the Boundless Playground. It's an interesting playground out at Sedgwick County Park. We'll talk about that a little bit, and we do have an opportunity to consider repealing a regulation today. So we have a very interesting meeting this morning. Thank you for being a part of our meeting, for being here this morning. We are recording this. It's available on YouTube, as well as it's streaming live on our website, as well as, I guess that's it, on the website. So thanks for being here, and with that, I will go ahead and call to order. I'm sorry, take that back. Madam Clerk, first item, please.
Invocation to be led by Pastor Brent Workington, First Mennonite Brethren. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we're grateful for your mercies that are new every morning. Thank you so much for our great state of Kansas, this great nation, and for Sedgwick County. I pray that you would bless our leaders here, help us to have deep respect for them, and even in our disagreement to do that respectfully and kindly. We do ask that you would bless this meeting and help us to honor you in everything. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. And with that, I will now call to order the regular business meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for the date of Wednesday, September the 7th, 2016. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Unruh?
Present.
Commissioner Norton?
Present.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Present.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Present.
Chairman Howell?
Present. All right, thank you. Next item, please.
Public information announcements.
Good morning, Commissioners. Katura Austin from the Communications Office, filling in for Kate Flavin. We have just two items to mention to you today. The first is just a reminder that next week the Commission meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 13th at the Cargill Learning Center at the Sedgwick County Zoo. So that will be an evening meeting, a meet and greet at 6 p.m., followed by the Commission meeting at 6:30. So we look forward to seeing everyone there. And second item is that September is Preparedness Month. Dan Pugh from Emergency Management is here to tell us a little bit about what that means. Dan?
All right, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. As she said, my name is Dan Pugh, and I'm with Emergency Management. And I wanted to talk just briefly about September being National Preparedness Month. And this is our 13th annual Preparedness Month. It started after the terrible tragedies of September 11th, 2001. So a few years after that, we started a time to be able to recognize the strength and resilience of the people of the nation. And it's a time that locally we recognize the strength and resilience of the people of Sedgwick County. And we take, basically during this time frame, we take a focused effort on being prepared, what we can do to move through things, how we can be better prepared moving forward. And so we've got a couple of steps that I just want to bring to everybody's attention. Generally, we take a three-step approach. Our first thing is to make a plan. Our second is to build a kit, and our third is to stay informed. So I'm not going to talk about those things here. We've done that in lots of other meetings, but I'm going to tell you where you can get more information. You can go on to your smartphone or tablet and go into your Apple Store or your Google Play and download the Sedgwick County app, because it will walk you through how to do each of those things for you personally at your home or office. And you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter. All month we're doing social media pushes and talking about how tips and information about how you can be better prepared at home or at the office just through social media. So lots of great opportunities. We've got a couple of events that we're partnering with folks. Yesterday we went out with the folks at McConnell on base to go through base housing and hand out information to packets to folks living there to say how they could be better prepared for Kansas. Not all of them are from Kansas, so we have some threats here that they're not used to. Also, we have some threats here that we're not used to, like earthquakes, but it's not something that we dealt with, 10 years ago, but, we're on top of it, and we're continuing to move forward, and we just want everybody to know how to be prepared, so you can get information about all of that on the Sedgwick County app. And I will answer any questions you have before I turn it back over.
Well, Mr. Pugh, thank you for the information, and I have downloaded that app, and I've been all over it trying to learn how it works, and it's been, whoever developed that did a great job, so thank you for that. I hope everybody would take the time to download the app. It's certainly worth the time. It's free, and it certainly jogs the mind and gets you thinking about all the ways you can get prepared, so appreciate all the work you've done. Commissioner, I think Commissioner Peterjohn has some comments.
Just a quick comment. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, obviously, after the earthquake this last weekend, if you had any comments that might fit in, since we often talk about tornadoes, but I felt more earthquakes in Kansas than I have in any other place that I've lived in my life.
Right, definitely. There are three big points that we want to talk about. Obviously, in an earthquake, the concept is just drop, cover, and hold on. This last earthquake we felt lasted longer than probably any that we've felt in a long time, unless you've been traveling to other parts of the country. So drop, cover, and hold on. Don't try and run. Don't try and go to a doorway or anything. Just stay where you are. Get down and hold on to something. The second point is that we want to remind everyone not to call 911 unless you're in danger. If you need fire or law enforcement or EMS, or if you feel you're in danger, by all means call 911. But if you felt the earthquake and you just want to talk to somebody about it, do not call 911 for that. We get a lot of calls after every earthquake, and it kind of ties up our lines. And so we just reiterate, do not call 911 after an earthquake unless you need fire, law enforcement, or EMS because you're in danger. And then the third thing is just to have an understanding that most homeowners insurances don't cover earthquakes, so that's a separate rider. So we would encourage everyone to talk to their insurance representative to see if earthquake insurance makes sense for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pugh. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have nothing further for public information.
I just want to say again, thank you for being here. This is Couture Austin, and she's new to this position, so that you did a good job today. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
All right, so with that, we're ready for the next item, please.
Public agenda.
All right, I do have a sign-up sheet, and I have two people that signed up to speak, but the first one, I think, wants to talk about item L. So if it's okay to Sue Wenger, I'd like to call you up to speak when we get to item L, which is the item on the agenda dealing with the property title transfer issue. And so with that, I'd like to go to the next person that signed up to speak. That's Miss Bauer. And if you're here. All right, thank you.
That doesn't mean I'm going to talk. Yes. Okay. My name is Marilyn Bauer, and my address is 156 North Sedgwick, 67203. Anything else I forgot?
No, you're good.
Okay, fine. I want to address something that I was out of town when it was passed, to delete the item for overseas inoculations. It was considered a very small program, and it got mostly paid back. It was less than $500 the county actually had to finish paying. And that we go to telling folks to go to the little clinics in some of the big, like Dillon's and Walgreens and CVS, and then they could get their serum from the CDC. Well, that's not how they get it. They get it from their suppliers, and they're all different. And what I found initially was, I don't know, it has the health department where you get your shots by Riverside Hospital. Has that always been closed till noon on Tuesdays and Wednesdays or Thursdays? That's been cut back, I think. Okay. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday they're open from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays they're open only from noon till 5. So that cuts back on that. The other ones are, there's a lot of different things going on with them. I've spent a week and a half doing a lot of interviewing and figuring out just what was what. It just looked like a huge can of worms to start out with. What I found out was that Walmart and Sam's pharmacies, they do local shots for in country, but they don't do overseas shots at all. But they do all of the, I should say, the malaria pills. You get those, you first check with your doctor, find out what you need. There's 250 milligram, there's 500 milligram, and there's 2 different kinds, depending on how long you're going to be gone. And then go to anyone you want, any pharmacy you want, and they will fill it. It's all the way from $151 to over $200, depending on what you have. So there's quite a bit of change in that. I found out that in typhoid pills, most of those will do typhoid pills, and you don't have to have. You just get those from your pharmacy. Okay. So I found a difference of. Here's one for $74.89 at the health department, to $79.99 at Walgreens, $84 at CVS, and $109 at Dillon's. Now the difference is that Dillon's always has, for all of their little clinics, they always have a nurse practitioner on duty. Okay, and it's doctor, physician assistant, nurse practitioner. Okay, and so they add $25 to each one of their shots. Okay, so they are a little bit more expensive, but you know that you're getting a certified person. The others were, I had to really dig and go to different ones and ask the same questions. Finally, I got it answered. They, in their protocol at CVS and Walgreens, and I wondered, I had a comment from somebody, maybe at one of the Dillons, I don't know, anyhow, that, well, you know, pharmacists really should not be giving these kind of shots. So there's kind of a controversy there. So apparently what they do is there's a doctor who, they're under this protocol. The pharmacists take a course, and then they are considered certified. And that is okayed by a doctor, maybe the same doctor for the whole of CVS and Walgreens. I don't know about that. Okay, and the health department, of course, they have the people there that really are certified, so they don't need to worry about that. And yellow fever is a strange thing right now. Everybody's a little upset, or I got some different things. They're changing quickly. You need to know that all the prices that I gathered were just for that time, and they change constantly. And anybody who's going overseas needs to check with whoever they're going to get their shots from early, because sometimes they take a while to get in your system, so you'll be covered. Okay. When I first saw the article in the paper, it was about, I'd been in Oklahoma, it was $118 at the health department. It jumped up to $182.02. Then, I don't know, I've got strange things. CVS, they were saying $300 to, I can't give them. And Walgreens, it was $159 or maybe $300. Dillon's had 175 plus $25, so that would be $200 for them. Okay, and but what's happened is there's a huge, can you all hear? I guess there's a huge epidemic of yellow fever in the Republic of Congo and also Angola. And they had to call in all the extra yellow fever that people all over the world could send them. And they just immunized 5 million people. So that may change a little bit, hopefully. The typhoid shot, the only place that really gives it is the health department. It's $121.85. But that's only good for 2 years. And boy, the first time I got that, and my arm hurt for a month. The pills are good for 5 years, and that's $74.89. And it's pretty consistent, $84, $79.99, $109. The higher one's always the Dillon's one. And hepatitis A, 45, 53, 59, 119. Hepatitis B, 59, 53, 59.99, and 109.
Ms. Bauer, if you don't mind, I'd like to interrupt you if that's okay. We've been
Yeah.
going on. We've been going on quite a while. I'd like
Okay.
to ask you to
Yeah.
please summarize and finish
This
this
is
up. If you don't mind.
this is the last.
Thank you.
And the meningococcal meningitis, it's as bad as it sounds. Okay, but they finally admitted that the ones that the little clinics are giving are the strain that is used for the colleges. When you go to college, you get one of those. But if you're going to the meningitis belt in Africa, you get one at the health department. It's the right stuff. It's $198.61. And the others are $133, about that. It's the same. Japanese encephalitis, there is one place in town that they don't give it at the health department because it's so expensive. It's plus $300, and that would be at Walgreens. They've been giving them for a long time. But they said they were about $400 a piece, but now they're $600 a piece. You have to have two. But that's not everybody has to have those, but it's an Asia thing. Okay. So I think, Dr. Tom Moore of Infectious Disease Consultants said it's kind of short-sighted to just cut them off, the health department off for giving those. And I kind of agree, but these others are very good, and they do have other times. They'll be open longer. Some of them are open 24 hours. You have to check. You just have to check each one of them. But I think that it's kind of important for us to keep that open. It's not that much money, and you get it back. I guess if you could jack the price a little bit if you want to make sure it's just a straight across thing. But we need it. This is our public health, and we need it. And I'm not the only one. I talked to some big churches that are sending out 30, 50, and more, and they were shocked. They were very shocked that would be happening. Okay? So that's just my recommendation. I think that if you're going to do that, I think I'll have to get mine in Kansas City because they do have the right ones and they do work with their health departments. Okay?
All right. Well, thank you for your comments this morning, Ms.
Okay.
Bowers. All right. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Appointments. Item A, accepting the resignation of Ken HIXSON, City of Mulvane, representative from the Sedgwick County Stormwater Management Advisory Board.
All right.
Mr.
Commissioners,
Chairman?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, actually, the next 6 items are either acceptance of resignations or appointments. And they tend to fall into groups, and so I'm going to recommend that we kind of take them up as maybe as pairs, if it's all right with you. Item A is the resignation of Mr. Kent HIXSON as the City of Mulvane representative on the Sedgwick County Stormwater Management Advisory Board. And item B is the appointment of Mr. Kevin Baker to that board by the City of Mulvane. And Mr. Baker is present, I understand. So I would urge, and the paperwork is in order on both A and B, and I would urge adoption of the recommended action.
Commissioners, this is in the 5th District, so I'd be pleased to make the motions to accept the resignation and to appoint Mr. Kevin Baker to the position of the Stormwater Advisory Board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Chairman Howe?
Aye. All right.
Do we want to do the swearing in of Mr. Baker first, or we want to wait until the...
Now let's go ahead and do that now, so if he's here.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. All right, please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Sedgwick County Stormwater Management Advisory Board, so help me God.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Same thing.
It's a pleasure to be appointed by the City of Mulvane, and hopefully we can serve the board in a positive and aggressive manner to manage our stormwater.
Thank you. Thank you for being willing to serve on this board. I appreciate you very much. And by the way, we do have an advisory board meeting on that
Today at 3:30.
Today, so first one we've had in a long time. So I look forward to seeing you there. I plan on attending that as myself. So we'll see you then.
You bet.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, item C is the appointment of Chief Darrell Atteberry to the Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Advisory Board in the Chief of Police position for cities of the 2nd or 3rd class. And item D is the reappointment of Dr. Ronald Varner to that same board in the business I'm sorry, in the position of an organization outside the county doing business with that science center. Mr. Varner, I understand, is not present, but Mr. Atteberry is. I would urge that you accept the recommended action in both C and D.
Thank you for the recommendation, Commissioners. What's the will of the board?
So moved.
So we have a motion.
Second.
And a second to appoint Chief Darrell Atteberry and reappoint Dr. Ronald Varner to this board. We have that motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Chairman Howe?
Aye. All right.
Do we have Chief Atteberry?
I don't.
You know, okay, we'll get back to that. Mr. Chairman, items E and F are also somewhat related. Item E is the resignation of Mr. Tom RACUNAS, who is Commissioner Unruh's appointment to the Sedgwick County Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. And in his place, Commissioner Unruh is requesting that Judy Wiley be appointed to that same board. The paperwork on both of these seem to be in order, and it's my understanding Ms. Wiley is going to be present to be sworn in. I would urge adoption of both of these recommended actions.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the resignation of Tom RACUNAS from the Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board, and in his place appoint Judy Wiley as a representative to the IDD Board.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Chairman Howe?
Aye. I think Commissioner Unruh also has some further comments.
Well, I just wanted to make the comment that we sincerely appreciated Mr. RACUNAS' service. He was actually going to resign some time ago, but instead, at our request, stayed on until he's, I believe, leaving our community. But he did a great job in serving the community, and we truly appreciate it. And Ms. Wiley is here, and I appreciate her willingness to step in and take his place. This takes time and energy out of a person's daytime to do this job, and so it's really a commitment on the part of the one willing to serve, and we take your service seriously, and so I just wanted to take the opportunity to express my appreciation.
All right. please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Sedgwick County Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. So help me God.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I look forward to serving.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Proclamations. Item G. Proclamation declaring National Suicide Prevention Week.
All right, Commissioners, I do have a proclamation that I would like to read this morning. It says, whereas in the United States, one person dies by suicide every 12.8 minutes, with 41,149 deaths by suicide in our country during 2013. Whereas in our country, suicide is the second leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-olds and is the 10th leading cause of death for people of all ages. Whereas suicide is a tragic act, it is estimated that for every suicide there are at least 6 survivors, immediate family members, relatives, friends, and coworkers who try to understand the pain, confusion, and grief following the loss. Research shows that during the course of our lifetime, 85% of us will lose someone we care about to suicide. Whereas far too many Sedgwick County residents and Kansans die by suicide each year, and most of these deaths are preventable. Whereas the mission of Sedgwick County Suicide Prevention Coalition is to promote and implement evidence-based approaches, local research, and community change to reduce the impact of suicide with the ultimate goal of 0 suicides in Sedgwick County. Whereas in Sedgwick County, help is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by calling the Sedgwick County Suicide Prevention Hotline at 316-660-7500. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jim Howell, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the week of September 5 through the 11th, 2016 as National Suicide Prevention Week. This topic of suicide will continue to challenge us all to increase our awareness and education, and I call upon the residents of our community to join me in learning to recognize the signs of someone at risk, taking those signs seriously, and knowing how to respond. Commissioners, I would make a motion we adopt the proclamation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. And to receive the proclamation this morning, we do have, I believe, Nicole Finoglio? How do you say your name?
Fenolio.
Fenolio. All right, thank you. Oh, it's actually phonetically pronounced. I just didn't read the letter paper correctly. My fault. So Nicole Fenolio, thank you for being here this morning, and I'd like to give you a few minutes to say something about this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We greatly appreciate this proclamation today, and on behalf of the Sedgwick County Suicide Prevention Coalition and all of the residents of Sedgwick County, this is a very important issue that I think affects all walks of life, and so we greatly appreciate this and continue to work in Sedgwick County to try to prevent suicide.
Thank you for being here and for raising the awareness this morning. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
New business. Item H. Sedgwick County Suicide Prevention Coalition 2016 Annual Report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Nicole Klaus, and I am the chair of the Methodology Committee with the Sedgwick County Suicide Prevention Coalition. And we analyze local data, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning to share some of the data regarding local suicides in 2015. These data are available to us through a partnership with the Sedgwick County Health Department and the County Regional Forensic Science Center. So we appreciate their role and their efforts in that. Last year, there were 68 suicide deaths in Sedgwick County, which is a rate of 13.3 per 100,000. And this is actually a decrease from 16.4 per 100,000 in 2014. So on this chart, you can see the yellow bar is the national suicide rate, and that always lags a couple of years behind our local data. But this decline we saw last year brings us back down to about where the national rate was a couple of years ago. Our local rates vary from year to year, so we'll want to continue to monitor this over the next several years to see whether this is a trend or not. And as we'll see in the coming slides, this decline in 2015 was accounted for by fewer deaths among males over age 35 by firearms. So here you can see that firearm continues to be the most common method of suicide, but I would note that this has decreased from 55% of suicide deaths in 2014 to 44% in 2015. So this chart shows several years of rates per 100,000, and here we can nicely see how those gunshot deaths declined in 2015, whereas hanging deaths have risen over the last few years and stayed steady. The greatest number of suicides occurred in individuals between the ages of 25 and 54 in our community. These are the gray and yellow pies on this chart. And if we look at this by rates, over here in 2015, we can see that the younger people, age 15 to 34, these are the red and green bars, had the highest rates in our community, whereas all the age groups over age 35 declined from the previous years. Males continue to die by suicide at the highest rates. However, we can see a slight decline in deaths among males in 2015, whereas our deaths in females have remained steady. And non-Hispanic white individuals have the highest rates of suicide. A history of mental illness was noted in 54% of the autopsies in suicide deaths in our community. And the majority of these individuals suffered from depression and or anxiety, which are treatable conditions. So there were some declines in 2015, which is great news. But we at the Sedgwick County Suicide Prevention Coalition feel that any suicide is too many. And so our ultimate goal is to reach 0 suicides in our county. And the community can help us reach this goal by recognizing the warning signs and knowing the resources that are available in our community. We have a 24-hour crisis center, and the phone number for that is shown here. And there are also several events coming up in the next couple of months that the community can get involved in, and those are more information about all of those is listed at the website there. Thank you.
Dr. Klaus, thank you for, am I saying that right?
Yes.
Dr.
Yeah.
Klaus, thank you for being here this morning for the report. I have a couple of questions, but before I get to my questions, Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I just want to express appreciation for you to, at least each year, remind us of this tragedy that infects our community. And I know that this is not just an opportunity for statistical analysis. I know that we really have a heart for this and want to try to teach our community to respond when we see those signs. You don't have to be a psychologist to know when someone's talking in ways that is not helpful, or their behaviors change, their moods change, and we just need to be encouraged repeatedly that we should take the opportunity to respond, talk to these folks, and when appropriate, get them to the right professional care. But even though we're not professionals, most of us, we can be helpful. And so I just appreciate you being here and that you encourage us to take the opportunity to be good neighbors, good citizens, and help those who need help. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Further comments from Commissioner Norton?
Thank you for being here today. I find it very interesting that the rates have gone down. I think the bigger question is, we know that everybody has a mental health state in our community. Just like you have physical health, you have a mental health state. Are there any indications that there's a rise in more mental health cases that could lead to suicide in our community? Do we track that? Do we start to look at a little more prevention as opposed to, I mean, this is the ending to a mental health problem, not the beginning of it.
Absolutely. I don't have those data. Does ComCare collect any data about the general population? Yeah, I don't have those data, but I agree that it's very important to intervene much earlier. Yeah.
I find it interesting, too, that males are so more prevalent. Do you think that's because they don't seek services? They have a little bit different idea about taking care of their mental health than maybe women do. Is there any studies on that?
I think there are several factors involved. Part of it is the stigma around seeking help for males. Another part of that is that males are more likely to choose more lethal means when they attempt suicide, whereas females have much higher attempt rates.
And have we seen the dynamics change a little bit since we've started the Community Crisis Center, where there's in the hotline and everything, where people can talk it out, seek some services, find help? Is that, do you think that changes the dynamic, or have we had that open long enough to make a difference?
I will let Jason Scheck address that. Community Crisis Center.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jason Scheck, Director of Outpatient Services for ComCare. We have seen, for the Community Crisis Center, we've seen overall the increase in demand for that service. We've seen folks being able to choose local voluntary treatment as an alternative to hospitalization. So I think we've seen increase in willingness to accept treatment and not wait for things to get to the point where it requires involuntary commitment through the courts or law enforcement intervention.
Remind us of how to get in touch with the Community Crisis Center.
Sure.
And how to seek those services if somebody would need it.
The phone number for the Crisis Center is 660-7500, and that's answered 24 hours a day by ComCare staff. And we also have walk-in services available 24 hours a day, and that's at 635 North Main in Wichita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Norton. Commissioner Peterson?
If I can throw out a couple of questions, I'm not sure who to direct them to, so whoever wants to catch this. There's a lot of good demographic information here, but I was curious if you have any information in terms of if people who are more likely to commit suicide, certain income groups, and talk for a minute in terms of whether there's no data that I saw here relating to ethnic or racial backgrounds, and I was curious if you had any insights in those two categories of people.
Sure, I can address that. We do know that suicides are most likely to occur in non-Hispanic white males in particular. And so we do have a chart on that in the slides. In terms of income groups, we know that suicide cuts across income groups, but we don't have that data currently. We are working with the State Department of Health to get death certificate data for these individuals that would provide us with additional information regarding employment and veteran status and some other information that may be useful in guiding our suicide prevention efforts.
Well, I was curious when you mentioned also the employment status in terms of where people were. I remember once a publication wanted to make a point about gun violence in the United States and about how so many people were being killed by firearms, and they tried to get pictures of everybody during a certain period of time who had died due to firearm violence, and they were rather surprised discovery was that a large percentage of the people who were basically were suicides, and whether they were people who had underlying health problems, or they had a family member with health problems, or there were other factors involved, and it was sort of an unexpected outcome. So I was interested in terms of if you had other information that might be helpful too.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the statistic. I think about twice as many individuals die of suicide by firearms than by gunshots by another
hanging
individual.
Or by taking pills, or and it's a cultural thing. When I was in Japan, they had some unique ways. That was an honorable way of departing in that culture, which would be antithetical to what we're discussing here today. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I just have a couple of other quick questions, and this might be more fitted to Director Scheck. I'm not sure, but so see who wants to answer the question. I'm just curious because it seems like everybody goes through times in their life where life gets tough, and so they go through maybe a period of depression, but it's just a temporary, acute issue rather than a chronic lifetime issue of depression. And so if someone is feeling depressed and they decide to call this hotline, what's going to happen to them? I mean, I think the fear of the unknown, people don't know what's going to happen. Are you going to send a police officer to their house? Are they going to be taken to some place against their will? I mean, people don't know what's going to happen. So the curiosity is, if they were to call this number, they might fear that they lose control of the situation. That gives them an incentive not to call the number. So can you please talk about what happens when they call the number?
Sure. And so as you said, many times suicidal crises are time limited. So I think that is an important point to make, and to recognize that support and help during those times of crisis really can make a difference. When folks call our suicide prevention hotline, it's answered by trained ComCare staff, and people can call that hotline anonymously. We're able to provide more help and coordinate services better sometimes if we have a name, but certainly calling anonymously would be one option. And so mainly what we do is listen, try to understand the problem, and help folks identify pathways forward in their life. So that service is confidential. We do involve emergency responders when it's clear that somebody's life is in jeopardy, but that's always as a last resort. We always encourage that person to seek their own help, to be in control as much as possible, or to have other people around them help them through that situation. But if we get information that there's an imminent threat to safety, then we do have an obligation to work with our partners at 911 to get emergency assistance. And so an example of that would be a suicide attempt that's already occurred or is in progress. Those are times when we would request 911 help us in responding to that emergency situation. But the vast majority of those calls are handled at just a direct level, supportive listening, problem solving, counseling, and providing some direction and resources to help that person, again, through that time-limited crisis. I'd also comment that in addition to just individuals who are suicidal calling that number, concerned others can call. So many times the person around the individual in crisis has a clear picture of the crisis, and they're needing help or resources to support that individual, and so those folks are welcome to call as well.
May I ask, in terms of the people's privacy, do you guys keep records of people that make phone calls if they call several times? Excuse me. Do you guys keep track of the history of the person that's called in? And if what I'm getting to, I guess, is there may be some worry that this is going to connect to their electronic health records, maybe career limiting, if they perceive that this might be something that will follow them around, that might discourage them from making the call. So do you have access to electronic health records, and do you ever keep track of the phone calls that people make? We keep track of phone records in the same way that a doctor's office might, and those are protected health information. It's kept in a secured medical record, and so that's not shared without the person's written consent typically, unless there's some other court order or something that would require release of records. So that kind of information is not shared with employers. And as I mentioned earlier, it's possible to call that line anonymously as well. Okay. I think that people understanding exactly what would happen to them if they make the call, again, helps them not worry about losing control and not worry about things that might happen to them in the future as a consequence of just making a call because they are having a bad day. They're depressed and they need to make a call, then make that call. But I don't want them to worry about the consequences that might be created, and let that discourage them from making the call. I mean, again, getting help is the most important thing. Right, and I think of it as a way to be in more control. So it's a tool, it's out there, it's a resource at folks' disposal to use to regain control in a situation where they may feel like their mental health condition is spinning out of control. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Scheck, or Director Scheck, and Dr. Klaus. Any other comments from commissioners? right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And any other discussion? I do see on my agenda, I do accept public comment. Is anybody here that would like to speak to the agenda item before we vote? All right, seeing none and seeing no other discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Ransaw?
Aye.
Chairman Howe?
Aye. Thank you so much for both of you for being here today. All right, next item, please.
Item I, Wichita Area Technical College update.
I'd like to welcome President Sherry Utash from WATC, and I asked you to come and make this presentation this morning because when I was at WATC recently for one of the board meetings, there was a tremendous presentation. I was so excited. I wanted you to come and share some of the information with the full board and with the public as well. So, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you, Chairman Hall and Commissioners, for the opportunity to share some of the great work that's happening at Wichita Area Technical College. I just finished my first year in the president's role and was able to provide an update, an overview of this first year to our board a few weeks ago, and Chairman Hall is a member of our board and asked me to come do that. So I'm delighted to be able to share what we're doing. Academic year 15-16 was a great year for our college, and we worked under this mantra of let's imagine success all year. So I want to start with just a couple of things. If we imagine success, this last year we became the #1 of all two-year colleges in the state of Kansas for the highest wages earned by students graduating with an Associate of Applied Science degree. We also became the #3 college of all two-year colleges in the state of Kansas for the highest wages earned by students graduating with a technical certificate. So out of 27 two-year colleges in the state, we're #1 and #3 in degrees and certificates for wages earned by our graduates. We also had an enrollment a year that we were up 9.1% from the previous year for last year. We had an employee satisfaction rate of 94.7%, and we had a 76% return, and that's an increase of 3% from the previous year. And the previous year, we only had a 54% return. So we feel really good about that. We're happy about that. We have fiscal stability because we have ended our year over our budget projections, and we were able to provide performance merit-based bonuses. And we have created a merit-based bonus system in education, which is pretty unique to education. We had 1,053 unduplicated headcount graduates, earning a total of 1,395 awards, which would be degrees or certifications or certificates. Our fall-to-fall retention rate is 55.8%. The national average for that is 59%. So we have some work to do there, but I think it's important to note that many of our students are fall to spring persistence and not fall to fall, because most of our programs are completed in 1 year or less. And we continue to have a really great placement rate. 93.9% of our graduates either went into employment in their discipline area, continued their education, or were part of the military. So just to show how WATC is representing Wichita and our community on a national level, this year for the first time, we have many students that compete in Skills USA at the state level, and we had 23 medals earned by WATC students at the state level. But this year at nationals in Louisville, Kentucky, we had our very first gold national winner in architectural design, first time ever. And then a silver award to one of our airframe and power plant students. So on a national basis, they competed nationally across the nation with all other two-year college students. 1 gold, 1 silver. First time that we've ever gotten national medals for our programs at Skills USA. Very proud of that. This is a great slide, and there's a lot on this slide, but this is really, truly what I would consider a return on investment for the work that we do. So on the left side of this, you see all the different programs of study, but what's really important is if you look at 2011 through 2015, And you can look at credentials. And the credentials have increased for our students from 979 credentials in 2011 to 1,621 in 2015. Graduates, 1,006. They've increased to 1,381. And our job placement has increased from 84.4% to 86.7%. So we continue to create more graduates, we continue to create higher job placement, and we continue to create more credentials for our students to be able to take to the workplace. These are just some things that have happened this last year that I think are, kind of hallmarks of the work that we've done. Our dental assisting pass rates increased from 70% to 97%. Our Surg Tech students improved their pass rates for their national credentialing to 93% this year, and they will receive a certificate of merit from their National Accreditation Association. We had the highest pass rates in Surg Tech in the nation this last year. We have new programs that we're building in vet tech, massage therapy, patient care tech, and construction science. We were awarded a $2.5 million Title III Department of Ed grant, and that will help expand our health care offerings. We created a new climate and energy control lab, so that is the new thing for HVAC. So it is now called Climate and Energy Control, and it is a state-of-the-art lab at our Grove facility. We've also done a facelift on our auto service program, and also at our Grove campus, we have created a new IT Center of Excellence where we've been doing some work in help desk for IT, and we're creating 2 brand new degrees, one in hardware and one in software, that are going through the process at KBOR for approval as we speak. So that will really create a new area of education for us at the college as we work in the IT area and work with our local employers that need that so bad. We had 3 open houses that attracted 2,000 potential students, and we participated in National Manufacturing Day, which is the first Friday in October every year, and also in National Signing Day. And I don't know that you know what that is, but we decided to take the concept of national signing for athletes and do it for career tech ed students. So what happens is they come in with their families, they get a hat, they get all kinds of accolades, and they actually sign a proclamation that they are coming to signing day to attend Wichita Area Technical College as a career tech ed student, just like you would with athletes. Bring their families, take pictures, all that kind of thing. So some other things we did is we created some dedicated classrooms for our new police science program. We have expanded our nursing program at Southside. We have created a new way to teach developmental education, and I think this is really an important piece. 60% of our students have to take at least one developmental class in math, reading, or writing. What we have done is the old traditional way was you sit in a classroom for 16 weeks, even if you just need 2 weeks of fractions. Today, you come in and we analyze what you need, and you take that in a parallel remediation to your program courses. And then you just pick up what you need, and it's self-paced, but it's facilitated by instructors. And we've had, after 1 year, we've had really great success with that. So that'll change the way that we move students through developmental education. We were recognized as an innovation leader in Best Places to Work by Wichita Business Journal. You probably know that we have a partnership with Goodwill that created Next Step, which is our GED adult literacy program, and we increased the number of GED graduates this last year by 59%. We are successfully sunsetting our 5-year National Aviation Consortium grant, which was a $14.9 million grant from the Department of Labor. And you may remember that WATC was the lead institution with 4 other states to create some new curriculum in aviation and some new industry-recognized credentials that are now out on the market. The other thing that we did this year, another major project, was we created a new strategic plan for the college, which we implemented July 1. It's called Vision 2020, Designing for Your Future. It was a study that we created, a plan that we created with input from the community, from business and industry, from internal and external stakeholders. So we're really excited about that. It's a great roadmap for the college for the next 5 years. Some of you probably have heard about the Wichita Promise, and I just wanted to give just an update on where we were at with that. We were able to accept 67 students that started August 22nd in the Wichita Promise, and those students, as you can see down below, are in machining, patient care tech, aviation manufacturing, industrial automation, vet tech, automotive, composites, carpentry, and then pre-nursing and pre-medical assisting, and also aerospace coating and paints. So we chose some high-demand, high-wage programs that are really needed in this community. And what we did was we offered the Wichita Promise, and the promise was 4 things. Number 1, we would pick up the tuition and fees of those students after their Pell Grants kicked in. Number 2, we would provide them the training and get them the certificates and the degrees they needed to be work ready. Number 3, we would provide some what we're calling intrusive coaching on how to get the job, but more importantly, how to keep the job. And number 4, they have guaranteed interviews with at least one organization, if not multiples, upon graduation. So this is a new program that we started. We've had great success with it so far, and we have been able to engage the community in some donations as well to help with this project. I think the other thing that everybody's very interested in is what's going on with the WSU merger, so I'll just give you a real quick update on that. You know, WSU and WATC have a pretty powerful partnership already through the National Center for Aviation Training, and also through the Shocker Pathway that was created in 2015, which provides WATC students a pathway for an Associate of Arts degree from WSU. So in this merger, you know, we believe there's nothing like it out there in the nation anywhere, so we're really, number 1, we're establishing a new model for higher education. We think, secondly, it will serve as an economic driver for the greater public good for our community. And third, it'll create a better trained workforce by working together instead of separately. So the idea is to transform WATC into a new School of Applied Sciences and Technology at WSU. And it's important to note that WATC in this new school will retain its ability for open admission, open access, affordability, and degree options. So all of the degrees that we offer will continue. Our pricing for our tuition will still remain at a lower rate than what WSU has at this point in time, and will be open admission, open access. So what do we need to do to go forward with this? We have to get the support of the Kansas Board of Regents, which we did get last April. The next thing that we're working on is to get legislative support in the spring legislative session, and we're working on legislative language right now for that. There are a lot of, as you might understand, there is a lot of specifics to work out between the two institutions. The list grows longer every day as we really dig into what it takes to truly merge. And then we are doing a lot of consulting between our own campuses, each of our campuses, and with our community constituents and business and industry partners to make sure that we are on the right track to make this be a win for everybody. The final thing would be approval by the Higher Learning Commission, which is our accrediting body for both Wichita State and WATC. So the timeline for this looks like probably we're looking at an implementation date of July 1 of 2018, and that's kind of where we're headed right now. Lots of milestones between now and then to get us to that point. And the last thing I wanted to share with you is we just created a video, and it talks a lot about the merger, and so I'd like to just share that with you if I could. In an increasingly complex global marketplace, the future success of our state's economy will require a proactive and innovative approach to higher education. To meet this challenge, Wichita State University and Wichita Area Technical College have joined forces, leveraging similar missions and ongoing collaborations to create a new model for higher education, which will serve as a catalyst of prosperity for generations to come. At its foundation is an already powerful partnership between both institutions. In 2010, they created the National Center for Aviation Training in partnership with Sedgwick County. They've also bridged the gap between their curriculum through Shocker Pathway. It is a program that provides an affordable, convenient, and respected way to start at WATC and finish as a Shocker. But now WSU and WATC are thinking even bigger. The next logical step in their partnership will transform WATC into a new school of applied sciences and technology within Wichita State, for the benefit of students, the institutions, and the city, state, and our region.
One of the really important assets that happens when you bring two entities together with such different backgrounds and cultures is that you cause collaborations to occur and you cause what are called creative collisions. And we already are doing some of that. If you know anything about our organizations, we have a lot of equipment and activity already going on the WATC campus. We do a lot of work with their students in transition, and what this will allow is, because we'll all be one entity, it really encourages us to plan together, to think together, and to find creative solutions to the needs of our people.
Well, you know, I think that having the option to begin at a two-year college really creates an open door, an all-inclusive access to higher education. And so some students may not be ready for a large campus like Wichita State, and Wichita Area Technical College gives them a beginning. And also based on where you are in your life situation, I just think that the merger between WSU and WATC will help ensure that all citizens, that all of our students, all of our adult workers as well, will have an opportunity to continue their education.
By doing that, I think we will see the continued growth of training opportunities within this partnership, and our students will be able to proceed from a GED as we provide assistance with the help of Goodwill to provide high school diplomas for those that might not have otherwise finished, all the way through a PhD at Wichita State.
So for students, I think there's two things that they benefit from with this. First of all, they are going to benefit from expanded resources and services that currently our WATC students don't begin to enjoy, such as living in a dorm or attending college athletics, being in intramurals, being in a student organization. But I think more importantly, the big piece for students is it expands educational opportunities for them. So it gives them a chance to have additional applied learning opportunities, working with the Innovation Campus and the businesses there. And it also will expand their ability to continue their educational career through the development of baccalaureate degrees.
What's happening around the world is that we're seeing a major change in the role of higher education in preparing people for the future. And what we're really trying to do with this merger is to assure that Wichita State WATC come together to really meet the needs of the people. So given that we're public entities, that's what we're here for, and this gives us the opportunity to really improve our services.
Again, the opportunity to merge two really great institutions that are doing good work individually will be strengthened by this program. I think for the students at WATC, that the ability to work with Wichita State as they start out and get more familiar and more comfortable will be very positive. And at the same time, I think our programs at WATC will continue to serve those who want to stay in a technical college and complete at a technical college.
I think it's important to realize that there's a lot of connection between the institutions already. And so I think one of the big things for the institutions is just to continue to grow that partnership that we have in a more formalized way.
So workforce development is critically important to any economy, and again, we're going to leverage two great assets, WATC and WSU, to feed that economic engine.
Certainly one of the big areas that we work on in the partnership is talent development. How is it that we recruit the talent? How is it that we develop the talent in a pipeline, if you will? This proposed merger really will help us do that at a greater degree, because what it's going to allow us to do is work with industry to figure out what is it that we need to be doing with workforce development, and how is it that we get the best entry-level workforce that we can to be able to work with our companies to help them grow and to expand.
anything that we do to deliver a stronger, better trained, more contemporary workforce will help both our current businesses grow and other businesses that want to relocate to our state and to our community.
You know, I think the partnership is going to do one critical thing. It is going to ensure there is a quality, qualified, skilled workforce throughout the region. And in business today, that is the equalizer. That is the thing that's going to give you the competitive advantage. If we cannot find a quality workforce, then it doesn't matter what the product is. And so this merger really will help us to ensure that competitive advantage for our region.
From what we can see, there's nothing quite like this around the United States. And so we could become a model for the future. But this is really all about our family, our community, what it means to be in Wichita. We don't want Wichita just to be a place in the road. We want it to be a destination. We want it to be a place that people want to be. And this merger gives us an opportunity to have a very powerful tool to help the people of South Central Kansas.
So in closing, I just would like to thank the Commission for your continued support of Wichita Area Technical College and to allow us to be a microcosm of this community to create economic development through a skilled workforce. So I would answer any questions if you had them.
Thank you, President Utash, for being here for the information. That was an awesome video.
Thank you.
I'm really glad I got to see that this morning. How do you plan on using that video in terms of getting that to an audience that will see it?
We just finished it, okay. So you are actually one of the very first people to see the video. But we will be using it in presentations. We'll be using it as we try to explain the merger to governmental, legislator entities, and also business and industry. And we'll just use it in our presentations for both Dr. Bardo and I as we continue to spread the word about this and create an understanding of really what we're trying to do.
Well, I know that Sedgwick County has a long history of being invested in both Wichita State University as well as WATC in terms of workforce development, and so we are. I think I'm proud. I hope the County Commission would agree with me that we're proud of having that connection, and I think we're doing a good job as an organization, different organizations working together in partnerships. I think it's awesome. So. Anyway, my only question would be, can WATC students play WSU football? That was a joke. Okay. Do you have other comments from Commissioner Peter John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sure appreciate you coming in, and sure appreciate being among the first to get a chance to see this video. I think it's very important to get the report since Sedgwick County is so deeply involved, both with helping to fund Wichita State University as well as WATC. I mean, we're providing millions of dollars a year for both institutions. Sherry, to get into the question side of it, you mentioned certifications. You also mentioned credentials. Mm-hmm. Could you kind of differentiate the difference between the two? And I'm trying to understand, when you've got people graduating with 2-year degrees, how many of them leave WATC not only with the 2-year degree, but with either a credential or certification or both? So credentials are industry recognized credentials, and I would use, for example, in the world of automotive, there are ASE, which is Automotive Service Excellence certifications. So each of our students, we have worked really hard to make sure that all of our students, when they're graduating, they're leaving with at least one, if not multiple, industry recognized credentials. So those are just those are resume enhancers for them. That's a value add that they take to the workplace. In welding, it might be American Welding Society credentialing. Certifications are a certificate of completion or a technical certificate. So those are 2 academic awards. Just as the applied science degree is an academic award. So that's kind of the difference. So on their resume, they're going to have either, the certificate of completion, the technical certificate, or the applied science degree. In addition, they're going to have work-ready, industry-recognized credentials from all of their programs. And then from our healthcare programs, of course, then they have state board accreditation that goes on their resume as they complete their programs and take state testing. So you'd have a lot of graduates with two-year degrees who are leaving with both credentials and certifications.
That's right.
Probably.
Yeah, the beauty of that is it builds on each other. So a certificate of completion is a short term and then an exit to the workplace or go to the next level to get your technical certificate. So it's called stackable curriculum. And what it is it is a way to get people trained and in the workforce and then continue their education towards that technical certificate or that two-year applied science degree. And then also have these value-added industry-recognized credentials that make them more job-ready.
Well, I think it would be definitely a value to any employer. On your 5th slide, you had a job placement percentages and that had gone up. I was curious in terms of, you've got students who complete their first 2 years and then maybe decide they want to go on and go for a 4-year degree. How do you handle, I mean, job placement isn't becoming a junior in college, is it? Or how did you handle students who would be moving on in that direction? Or also, I think you've got some 11th and 12th grade high school students who are attending too, and how you work through on that percentage figure.
So job placement is defined, when we report job placement, we define it in 3 ways. You are either going into the field of work in the discipline that you took your training in, you're continuing your education once you graduate, so you're moving on to WSU or someplace else, or you are actively involved in the military. Either you came from the military and you've gone back, or you're going into the military. So we define that with those 3 criteria. That's how we base those numbers. Now, our juniors and seniors in high school are a very growing market for us, particularly because of Senate Bill 155. And so that particular group, oftentimes they can receive a credential or a certificate of completion or even a technical certificate at the time that they graduate. So at that point in time, if they continue on to an Associate of Applied Science degree, they're counted as continuing their education. If they go to the world of work, they're counted as going to the world of work. So that's how we define that.
I'm curious then in terms of for those Senate Bill 155 juniors and seniors, do you have any sort of an idea in terms of what sort of credentials and certifications they're leaving high school with?
Yes, it kind of depends on their programs, but I'll give you an example. For all of our juniors and seniors that are in our construction program, let's just say our carpentry construction program, they're leaving with an OSHA certification, so a safety certification, and also a couple of what they call NACER certifications, which are construction related and recognized by the construction world. The same thing is if they were as a junior and senior taking a welding class, taking welding classes, they would be eligible for maybe one certification in one specific type of welding that they've had the chance to be trained in while they were in high school.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterjohn. Further comments from Commissioner Norton?
Well, I can only start out with WOW, wow. The first time I got involved with WATC and technical education was probably 10 years ago. And our conversation was, what are we going to do now that it's come out from under the 259? If we were going to continue it as a college and not just as a technical school, what was going to happen? And I'm very proud of Sedgwick County for stepping up, creating the technical authority, looking to the future. A couple years later, we created the idea of National Center for Aviation Training and plugged WATC in there as the managing partner. And today, it looks to me like it's wildly successful. And the future is so bright. So, way to go. Everybody that's had their fingers on WATC and now the future, because it is going to be so critical to the future of our community. Not only in aviation and the medical fields, but in technology and all the advanced materials and probably entrepreneurship kind of ideas coming out of the innovation campus that we don't even know about yet. And it can be created as a business enterprise. The curriculum can be developed, and if it's technical, it's plugged right into WATC and trains our young people, so critical to our community and to keep our young people here. we continue to hear about brain drain, and it just is so sad for our community. I wrote down a whole checklist of things I was hoping you'd cover, and by the way, you hit most every one of them. The curriculum development for aviation, we were the national expert and leader on that.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you get to be the national leader for curriculum development for a whole industry? And WATC was that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very proud that Chakra Pathways is doing so well. That connection between two of our learning institutions that have a synergy now that allows kids to get their stackable credentials, but also move on to an academic setting and degree. The Wichita Promise, which now is plugging in kids and young people into those jobs that are so critically needed in our community. And you articulated that. And then career pathways and stackable credentials. The idea that you can get a couple of credentials and get into the workforce and then come back and stack some other things on top of it and get a 2-year degree with it and move on with your learning. Talk a little bit. I'm president of the foundation, and you need to get a plug in here for this. There's a foundation where people, if they want to provide scholarship money for kids, operating money for the future of WATC, money that can be an endowment to build over the next 20 years to create a sustainable future for WATC and their connection with WSU. Talk about that a little bit, Sherry, because it's critical to the future of the college.
You're right, it is. And we do have a foundation at WATC. It's a 501c3, and we have a new foundation director that was hired the first of the year that's really concentrating efforts on building our foundation. We have a growing board. Commissioner Norton is the president of that board. But the idea behind the foundation is it gives us the ability to do two things. Number one, it gives us the ability to search for and seek out dollars for scholarships. We have several people that have stepped up and given, small amounts to large amounts for Wichita Promise to help students be successful in the classroom, to provide them a pathway. And it's important to understand the Wichita Promise students are adult working students, and we've removed a barrier of cost for them. Otherwise, they can't come. They're all adult working students, and that was our purpose. Our purpose is to take them from a minimum wage job to a higher wage job and be able to have them be able to make that work in their life. So the foundation is a great place to make a donation for students, for scholarships. It's also a place where we get a lot of, we account for all of our indirect in-kind gifts. And we get a lot of those from industry for materials, because the materials that we use in these programs is very, very expensive, particularly in composites and welding and sheet metal. So we do get some donations from industry for those, and so we document those gifts there. Our foundation is alive and well and growing. Going to become a much bigger part strategically of the college, and that foundation will be maintained as a development office within the new merger as well. So thank you for bringing that up.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments and questions from Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, President Utash, thank you for being here today. It's always great to hear a report like this that is so positive in every aspect. When we originally got involved as a county commission in the National Center for Aviation Training, this is a type of success that we imagined, and you are bringing that dream to fruition out there, and we truly appreciate your efforts. WATC has been the managing partner of NCAT since the initiation of that effort, and it's built to respond originally primarily for the needs of the aviation industry, but you have kind of expanded your horizons a little bit and doing a more thorough job in preparing folks for healthcare careers and also the other trades. But you're doing a great job, and I think this is what our citizens want and expect as we invest in this asset in our community. workforce development is just absolutely critical to our economic health and job growth and stability here in South Central Kansas, and WATC is just a tremendous part of that. But how many, do you know yet what your fall enrollment is? I mean, how many students do you have?
You know, we're still doing some enrollment because of high school students, so we won't have final counts until September 19th. But as of this morning, we are trending towards the highest record in both credit hours and head count that the college has ever experienced in 52 years.
Excellent. Well, congratulations.
So.
And then on the other end of this student life out there, as they find jobs, are most of the students graduating taking jobs here in South Central Kansas, or are they leaving for Disneyland?
That, you know, the brain drain thing is really interesting, because I think the brain drain is probably more focused on four-year degree completers, because at the two-year level for our graduates, the vast majority of them stay right here. They do not leave. And even more important, the people that come from other parts of the state or even out of state and come to our airframe and power plant program, for instance, they stay in this area and go to work in Wichita. So I think that's an important thing to note, is that we don't have quite the brain drain at the two-year level at WATC as we may in some other sectors.
Okay, well, that's also good news. We want to keep all of our folks here in South Central Kansas.
That's right.
But, well, I noticed from the video, which repeat what some others said, that was excellent video, great work. It really communicates. But I noticed that there were folks from the aviation industry, folks from the finance, folks from healthcare industry and education, all working together in harmony, all on the same page and trying to move forward for this merger. And I think most of us want innovation and new things and new successes, and this is a way to help us drive to that goal. So thank you for your hard work, and congratulations on this success.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments? Commissioner Ranzau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, you may have already answered the question, so, but I'm interested in the dual enrollment with the high schools as far as numbers and credit hours. Do you have numbers yet, and how that's going?
We don't have final numbers yet, but the numbers look really very, very good. So I don't really have that yet, but I'd be happy to provide that to you in a enrollment report after September 19th, which is our 20th day reporting to the state. In our high schools, the enrollment is a little different. We have all of our full-time students, or our WATC students, our regular college students, are all enrolled before the first day of class, which is August 22nd. But as we enroll high school students, that actually takes the first 3 weeks first 3 full weeks of high school classes in session for us to get that all done. So it will actually be being finished up the night before the 19th to have it final. But I can share with you this, the numbers, the projection is very good for high school students. And we continue to build that high school opportunity in career tech ed across Wichita, but across our community with Valley Center and Derby, Campus High School, Clearwater, Goddard, and Mays. So we're really kind of surrounding this whole county and providing that opportunity. And that opportunity is really, it is growing, and many students are taking advantage of that at a young level.
Earlier, you talked about juniors and seniors. Is this program just limited to those kids if sophomores, for example, or younger kids that are capable? Or, is that available to them, or is there some sort of, legal prohibition or
No, it can be available to a 10th grader based on several different criteria, which is grades and their academic performance and how on track they are to graduate. So the majority of our students are juniors and seniors, but there is criteria that was built in to acceptance into the Senate Bill 155 program, which is really kind of an interesting thing because now we're finding that we're going into the middle schools and talking to students and ninth graders also and talking about this opportunity. And, you know, we're saying your grades have to be good to be able to do this. So work hard because here's what's going to happen. And, you know, there's parents are certainly very, very vested in this because it's a huge savings for parents. And it will truly help offset student loan debt for these high school students if they take advantage.
Well, and that brings me to one of my other questions, because I think you're right, that's a big advantage that a lot of people are using. If you merge with WSU, that option will still be available.
Yes, sir.
At the cost savings. I mean,
it will still remain the same.
Oh.
Yes, because when with the merger, everything that we benefit from as a 2-year institution, which one of those is Senate Bill 155, that will all move over to WSU as a whole entity. So we will still be funded as a 2-year institution through the state of Kansas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't really have any other questions. I just a couple of comments real quickly and I'll be done. But Senate Bill 155, I would say that you continue to, or WATC continues to develop more programs under that, as well as even outside of 155. You guys are, WATC is developing other programs dynamically responding to, I guess, the market needs.
That's right.
So again, I think that just shows, I guess, a tremendous strategy that is working fantastically. I have a connection to Senate Bill 155, as you know. I'd like to just state that real quickly. I was in the legislature when this was debated in the House Education Committee, and I served on that committee and actually got language into that bill that I felt was important at the time. It did pass to the governor's desk and has become a law. One of those provisions deals with private institutions, including home schools, and so this is available to everyone. If you're a student and you have good grades and you want to take advantage of Senate Bill 155, there's opportunities for our entire community, regardless of where you go to school. So that needs to be stressed, I think. I'd like to also point out that the placement rate for graduates is a tremendous statistic. I think that is exciting. If someone's concerned about getting a job, go to WATC, because there's a direct pathway, almost a 1-to-1 of getting education connected right to an actual career type job. And then lastly, I'd like to say that we are also invested in GED completion programs through WATC. I know there was some criticism last year that we weren't doing that, and I guess I made the point that we are doing that through WATC, and very successfully, by the way. And it's going, your stats there are going up tremendously as well. And I'm glad to see the partnership with Goodwill on that as well. So I'm just excited about that. I could talk for another hour, but I don't think I need to do that. If I have any other questions, I'll just talk to you privately when I see you at the next board meeting. So I'll wrap up my comments with that. I think final comments from Commissioner Peterjohn.
I'm just going to make a motion we receive and file. Thank you, Sherry.
Again, second. We have a motion and a second, and seeing no other discussion, I want to say I appreciate all you've presented today.
Sure.
It's exciting for Wichita and for Sedgwick County for all that you've been talking about this morning. So thank you for everything.
Thank you very much. We are just thrilled to be doing the work that we're doing. It's been a wonderful year. Thank
We have
you.
a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. All right, thank you. Next item, please.
Item J, agreement to update Boundless Playscape at Sedgwick County Park.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm Steve Clausen, your Operations Support Services Director. This agenda item, which we've visited with each of you beforehand about, is a request for an updated partnership agreement with West Wichita Sunrise Rotary Club for the Boundless Playscape at Sedgwick County Park. The agreement outlines the necessary terms and conditions of expansions and enhancements that they propose to make over the next 3 years at this really tremendously popular Sedgwick County Park attraction. The first agreement with Sunrise Rotary was entered into in 2007, where they came up with the exciting new vision. They raised $1.5 million of project budget and really made the Boundless Playscape a reality. This agreement is very similar to the previous one, and in condensed language does the following. It formally authorizes the Sunrise Rotary Club to provide, plan, construct the new additions and enhancements to Boundless Playscape that we've discussed. Our park superintendent has final authority to approve placement and the details of that those enhancements. Mark Schroep is here with us. It commits the county to participate in the following ways. First, by assisting the Sunrise Rotary Group with reviewing and offering consultation services with respect to their grant solicitation effort. Second, by paying for the required architectural and engineering fees that will detail and facilitate the necessary permits for the new added features. This commitment is capped not to exceed $7,750. And then lastly, we would purchase the first piece of new equipment at the Boundless Playscape, which is a family swing, not to exceed cost of $1,500. And there'll be more detailed information of what that will look like in just a minute. The agreement states that consistent with the 2007 agreement, the playground equipment, once installed, becomes the property of Sedgwick County, and that Sedgwick County is responsible for necessary maintenance and repair at Boundless Playscape. But I should mention that this is our responsibility, but over the last several years, the Sunrise Rotary Club has had annual workday efforts, and they participated with us in the effort of keeping Boundless Playscape well maintained. We have with us a room full of supporters from the Sunrise Rotary Club supporting Boundless Playscape. We thank all of them for being here. Brent Dome and Joel Rodell are also here and would like to make a presentation that outlines, gives a little bit more background to this park. Brent?
Thanks, Steve. Commissioners, good morning. On behalf of Sunrise Rotary Club and numerous community volunteers, we want to thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. I want to give just a very, very brief history on this playscape, and mainly for those that are unaware of what's gone on in the past, just to kind of bring some people up to speed. In 2002, Rotary International, as a world organization, was celebrating their 100th year in existence. And they placed forward a challenge to every Rotary Club around the world to come up with a community service project that provided a positive light in the name of Rotary. And so our small club of mighty but small club of 40 members came up with the idea of a Boundless Playscape where people and children of all abilities would be able to access play equipment within the park and be able to communicate and play together. And so with that, in 2003, we received permission from the Sedgwick County Commission at that time to utilize space within Sedgwick County Park. And this is a picture of that area where the Boundless Playscape sits now and the old equipment that was there prior to us, prior to this project. At that time, traffic count tallied about 550,000 visitors a year to the park. And according to Mark Schroep, the park superintendent, traffic counts after our playground was installed grew to over 1 million visitors a year. To say it is highly utilized, I think, is an understatement. That you can go out there about any day of the week, and it is packed full of kids and patrons. So we're pretty happy with that. In 2008, the park opened, and really the question is, well, who's utilizing it? And it's pretty much everybody. It doesn't matter what ability or disability you may have. You can access over 70% of the anywhere in the park, and it really creates an opportunity for everyone to interact and play together. Basically, local agencies such as Starkey, Catch, Rainbows, Families Together, the Sedgwick County, the MS Society, and Heart Springs utilize this park extensively. And according to the Director of Transportation for USD 259, they have sent over 70 buses to this park as their destination for within the year of 2015 and 2016. and so the general public overall is has a huge use for this playground. The Wichita Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board last month adopted a resolution stating that they are in full support of our Play It Forward campaign to raise over $1 million over the next 3 years to help with phase 2 of this project and expand the playground. This is a lady that is a special education interrelated teacher with USD 259, Tiffany Nickel. When she first visited our playground, when it was first opened up, it inspired her to write to one of our members within the Rotary Club about her experience within the park. And you can read her quote there, but I also wanted to add that her visit led to her organizing an event for Wheelchair Sports Incorporated, both participants and their families. And she continued to write that the event allowed wheelchair users of all ages to use the playground, whether they were parents of non-disabled children, youth in wheelchairs, or friends of children. They could access the park, and they could be involved 100% with the activities of others. This is a aerial view of the playground. We've had a very, very strong public-private partnership with Sedgwick County. While the playground was being built, Sedgwick County came in and committed to a new parking space area for playground attendees, and also a new restroom facility for all those attending. We appreciate your support on that. The Rotary Club, on the original project, as Steve was saying, we raised $1.3 million in cash and another $200,000 of in-kind goods and services. We do organize a biannual cleanup of the park, which involves our Rotary Club members and also volunteers from the public. We pay for annual lawn applications for weed control and have done that since 2008. But I think what's important is moving forward, we have 30 community volunteers that have amassed over 600 hours since January 1st of this year in an effort to develop the future vision for the Playscape, a capital campaign, and a food truck rally. And the food truck rally is, we would like to invite you and also the general public to join us on September 30th from 5 to 8 p.m. We are going to utilize this event to kick off our capital campaign, again to raise $1 million over the next 3 years for phase 2 of the project. And we are going with the theme of Play It Forward. We will have 8 food trucks that are going to participate and organize fun and games for everyone. More information on this event and also opportunities for donations can be found at sunriseplayscapewichita.com. And we invite you to visit us at that site and also throw us a little like out on social media. At this time, I would like Joel Rodell to come up, and you have a map of the future plans for the Playscape, and Joel is going to review that with you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Rita asked that I have all that are in support of the Boundless Playground expansion stand up. So those of you that are here, stand up before I roll forward. So yeah, we got a decent little group up here. Yeah, we're a mighty force, aren't we? We meet often. So the changes that we decided to make at the playground, a lot of them were based on what is the public telling us, what do we see when we go out there with our kids. So I have a 16-year-old and an 11-year-old, and so we've spent a lot of time out here. I've seen what the kids like, what they don't like, but we've also gotten some feedback. And one of the worst areas is the sand area. If we were to do anything differently, we want to put sand out there. So that started this conversation, which led to the idea of another $1 million expansion. So I won't take a lot of your time to go through each individual piece. But there's an area that's currently, it's called an Alpenstein landscaping wall, and it was an idea that we had that we thought could just beautify the area. Well, we've since found out that there's a lot of weeds like to grow within this Alpenstein wall. And so we had this idea, it's elevated, let's turn it into a berm that we can slide down and climb up. So this is just an example of what we plan to do with that area. Another area that we've gotten a lot of feedback on, and we believe that there's a lot of opportunity for, is nature play. It's really been around for about 10 years, but there's a lot of commercial manufacturers that are using really robust wood materials to create play pieces. So this is actually, it's a wood, it's called Robinia wood. So this is just an example of how we might utilize that as well. This is an interesting piece. This is an ADA accessible merry-go-round. So it sits at ground level. You can put accessible and non-accessible children, parents, families on there. It holds 6 people. And so this is a piece that we've learned a little bit more about, and we have a place for it on the playground. And this is the generational swing that we are asking you to provide for. It's a $1,500 investment, and it will actually connect right on to one of the existing bays. So it will be a really clean installation. So, and then to close, we made a very short video of our friend Jenny.
My name is Jenny Kreitzer. I've lived in Wichita area for about 15 years. About 20 years ago, I was injured in a snow skiing accident when I was 16 years old. And at that time, one of the first things that came to mind was I still going to be able to have children? Many years later, my husband and I welcomed our first daughter, Kelsey, into the world. And one of the things I was most worried about was how I could give her a very normal life, having been in a wheelchair as a parent. And so one of the things that we liked to do together was go to the neighborhood park, and we always ran into challenges because of the sand that was in the swing area. In fact, one time she said, "I wish I had a stand-up mommy," because I couldn't push her in the swing. And it was at that moment that I realized that things were going to be different for my kids. And when I heard about the Rotary's involvement in the Boundless Playscape, I was very excited because it would be an opportunity for both children with disabilities and parents with disabilities to interact with their loved ones on an equal playing field. And so being here at this park really brings back memories of playing with my children, Kelsey and Carly, and being able to enjoy this great space where families can come together. And we do a lot of adventures together, but being a part of the Playscape has been an amazing opportunity.
With that, any questions?
All right, Commissioner Norton.
Well, Margaret Mead once said, "A small group of very dedicated people can change the world." Indeed, that's the only thing that ever has. Thank you for Sunrise Rotary for changing our world right here in Wichita, Kansas.
Thank you.
It's made such a difference to Sedgwick County Park, but for the people of our community with abilities and disabilities, it's made a powerful message of how we care about every citizen. So thank you for bringing that to Sedgwick County. I'm in total support of what we will do to help to continue your mission. So thank you very much to all of you here. A small group of dedicated people can change the world, and you're showing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Peterson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sure appreciate all the great work that Sunrise Rotary has performed in the past, and bringing this presentation to us this morning. Every time I've been at the park, it's one of the facilities that gets tremendous amount of usage, and it's I know we've brought some sand out there earlier this year to help out a little bit, and sand's one of the opportunities from what I've been told about the facility. But having said that, I just delighted to see how that has come together, and there is so much usage since this Sedgwick County Park is in the 3rd County Commission District, and it gets tremendous usage from folks both in and outside my district. Wanted to thank you all for coming out this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would just say the sand we brought out there was by request. So the sand was there originally, but it went to people's homes and little kids' shoes, I think. So
we're gonna use the sand for future construction, so it's perfect. Yeah, for concrete. So we're gonna concrete the sand area in, but use your sand first. So.
Recycling, that's fantastic. Well, anyway, so I am thankful we were able to get the sand out there, and it was by request. That's the current design. It needs to have sand at least as long as you have that that part of the playground set up the way it is currently. So glad to do that. I didn't actually catch your names. Can you please provide your names for me?
My name is Joel Rodell, R-O-D-E-L-L, and then Brent Dome, just like it sounds.
All right. Well, thank you, both of you, for your comments, as well as Steve. And I want to say thank you to all the volunteers. This was a tremendous investment in this community. It wouldn't have happened without your vision and without your dedication, without your time and without your sacrifice. And so it's just fantastic that you made this happen. I just want to say thank you from me. Appreciate you very much. I'm sure everyone feels the same way about thankfulness to you and all you've done. So, other comments from Commissioner Ranzau?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo everything my fellow commissioners have said and thank everyone that's been involved, and I'll make a motion that we take the recommended action and approve the agreement.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? I would say that I believe I do need to ask, is anybody from the audience that would like to speak on the agenda item before we vote? We have public comment listed on the agenda. All right, seeing none. We have a motion and a second. I think just want to say final comments. I want to say appreciate once again all you've done and for bringing this to our attention and give us a chance to be partners once again on this this playground.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second and no other discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item K, consideration of grant in the amount of $939,527 from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Shelter Plus Care Housing Program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Kaufman with the Department of Public Services. Before you today is a grant application for a housing program that is part of a larger community response to the HUD Super Notice of Funding Availability process, or Super NOFA process. This is a renewal application for Shelter Plus Care funds, which are funds targeted to 3 specific homeless populations: those experiencing a severe mental illness, persons with substance use disorder, or persons with HIV/AIDS. This program partners with 3 referring agencies: ComCare, Miracles, Inc., and the University of Kansas School of Medicine, Wichita. These 3 organizations will be responsible for referrals for housing vouchers and for providing the care component of the program through case management services to those receiving the housing vouchers. The goal of this program is to provide the participants with safe and adequate housing while working on skills to increase their income and self-sufficiency. The long-term goal is for participants to successfully address any barriers that have contributed to their homelessness and to graduate into some other type of self-directed housing. For 2015 and 2016, 38% of program participants met that goal. That's very significant considering the barriers that individuals in this program face. You may recall that each year United Way leads an effort to take a snapshot of homelessness in the community. This past January, the point-in-time count showed that there were 571 persons identified as homeless, up 10 from the 561 last year. 39 of those individuals met the definition of chronically homeless, which was a reduction from 94 the previous year. And this program specifically addresses individuals that meet the chronic homeless definition. So we've seen a significant impact there. And the number of homeless veterans also decreased from 59 to 46. While the typical Shelter Plus Care program participant is a single adult household, this program also allows for families to participate. The income guidelines for this program are similar to many other federal programs and limit program participant income to less than 185% of the federal poverty level based on household size. For those with an income, it is a program expectation to pay up to 30% of that income towards rent. The grant request of $939,527 represents 112 housing vouchers at fair market rent as determined by HUD, and administrative fees that fund one position that works with applicants and tenants, landlords, and case managers from the participating programs. The Shelter Plus Care component is the largest portion of the community grant application, representing approximately 38% of the total request. I'd like to recognize Dr. Luella Sanders with United Way, the lead applicant for this community grant application. And also with us today are some program staff, Maggie Flanders and Kristen Sampamurthy, and Lynn Tatlock, a community partner with Salvation Army. I recommend that you approve the application for the grant, authorize the chairman to sign all necessary documents, including the grant award and any necessary budget adjustments. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation. And I have comments or questions from Commissioner Norton.
Well, I happen to be on the review committee of this grant, and it's an arduous process for, I think, 11 or 12 different agencies to try to come together, piece it together, make their part of the proposal, and it is a critical need in our community. So it is valued because it is a collaborative effort between a lot of folks that are trying to solve this issue of homelessness, but not duplicate any services, but to work together to solve it. So I'm going to be very supportive, and I'd make the motion we take the recommended action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Other comments, Commissioner Peterjohn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tim, would you speak for a minute? You gave us some of the data in terms of how in the homeless count, how we've performed and how things have changed. But you mentioned the difference between homeless and chronic homeless. Can you kind of differentiate how they're different and how that impacts these numbers?
Certainly. The definition of chronic homelessness includes an individual who's experienced homelessness for a total of 12 months or experienced homelessness 4 times in the past 3 years and has a disability of one type or another. So that's the definition of the individuals that are chronically homeless. And then other individuals that were identified in the count are considered literally homeless, and that means that they did not have a home to go to that night.
When you say disability, are you talking about people with drug and alcohol problems? You're talking about people who are physical, like paraplegic, or what's a disability?
Yes to those, and a mental illness would also qualify to meet that definition of disability.
For the people who kind of graduate from this program, how many would we count as successful, and how do we measure that?
In the 2015 year, we had 45 separations. 25 of those were positive out of that 112, that universe of 112. And the 25 that were positive were individuals that had either had developed some kind of an income that allowed them to leave the program so that they were able to self-select their housing. They were able to move into a different level of housing that didn't necessarily require the treatment because they had gone through the treatment process and had addressed that particular issue that had potentially led to their homelessness, or they had reunited with a family member. Oftentimes individuals that are experiencing homelessness have a family that the treatment that is paired with this housing voucher helps them reconnect with that family, and they're able to move home.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would like to ask, is anybody from the audience would like to speak on the agenda item? All right, seeing none. Any other comments from commissioners? We have a motion and a second. All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I would like to go ahead and take a 5-minute recess. We've been going just about 2 hours at this point, and I anticipate a number of people interested in speaking on the next agenda item especially, so let's go ahead and take a 5-minute recess. Be back here exactly at 11:01. Thank you.
Couldn't wait.
with that, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item L, repeal of the Property Title Transfer Inspection Code.
Good morning, Chairman and Commission. Tom Stolz, Assistant County Manager, Public Safety Director, here this morning to present a potential deregulation item in what is known as title transfer inspections currently performed by the staff of the Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department. As a point of history, on May 10th of 2006, the Board of County Commissioners adopted the regulation creating title transfers inspections via Resolution 7406. This resolution mandated that all sellers and or buyers of homes within the unincorporated area of Sedgwick County must arrange for an inspection of water well and wastewater systems on properties at the time of property sale. This regulation currently resides under Section 27 of the County Code. Several weeks ago, Chairman Commissioner Ranzau requested this item be brought before the Commission body to discuss the possibility of removing this regulation from County Code and allowing the real estate industry the choice of regulating itself by hiring a third-party private inspector or simply to no longer require the inspections. In the ensuing days following this request, staff has compiled the following information and met with representatives from the real estate industry. Here's some data to consider. MABCD averages roughly 500 of these inspections per year over the last 5 years, though this number is trending upward with the improving economy. About 40% of these inspections show some type of issue, everything from a total failure of a system to minor adjustments. That number is also trending upward as systems in Sedgwick County continue to age. Within Sedgwick County, there are 43 wastewater installers, a half a dozen septic system pumpers, and 15 water well installers. Any of these providers are capable of inspecting systems. Additionally, there are several home inspectors who could be trained to provide these inspections. In concerns to our meetings with stakeholders, in August, this matter was placed in front of the Sedgwick County Wastewater Advisory Board. They did not support the deregulation. And also in August, I presented this matter to the Realtors of South Central Kansas Association Board. They did not support the deregulation. In both of these groups, there was satisfaction with the existing system of regulation and some concern who would take over the inspections if Sedgwick County would no longer inspect. There was a general consensus by both groups that inspections should continue even if not performed by Sedgwick County. This operation within MABCD is generally viewed as cost neutral. The user fees collected for this service represent a portion of the revenue collected by the department. If the county continues to provide this service, however, it will be necessary to conduct cost analysis concerning fees since they have not been reviewed since the inception of the regulation 10 years ago. It is likely fees will have to be raised to properly cover costs of staff and commodities to perform these inspections and the subsequent re-inspections in instances of failure. At this point, I would stand for questions and will take whatever action deemed by the Commission as appropriate. I also believe there are some people present in the audience today who would like to make public comment.
All right. Well, before we go to the audience, I'd like to allow commissioners to ask questions or whatever at this time, and then we'll go to the audience after this. And so, Commissioner Ranzau?
Yeah, just real quick. Tom, to clarify, we'll still do inspections when they're installed or repaired, modified, things like that.
Yes, sir.
It just eliminates the requirement that when it's sold. And right now, the regulation says the inspection has to be done by the government and can't be done. There's no provision for private sector inspections.
That's correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I may have more questions later.
All right. Any other questions or comments from commissioners at this time? I anticipate there'll be some later on, and so at this time I'd like to go ahead and take this to the audience. I've got 4 people signed up to speak, and I will also allow others to speak. If you did not sign up, I'll still allow that as well. So let me go ahead and call you up in order, and then we'll hear from you first. So my first person to speak this morning on this agenda item is Sue Wenger.
Thank you, Chairman Howell, and thank you, Commissioners. And thank you, Tom, for being so tall. We have had, as Tom mentioned, discussions throughout the association and with others and we bring to the table our concerns and some thoughts. The health and safety of the general public may be compromised with the repeal of this particular item. County-mandated inspections do help in educating the public about potential health and safety issues when dealing with private water wells, failing sewer systems, and alternative waste systems. Because of Sedgwick County's leadership in this area for over a decade, inspections with a standard measurement are completed, and environmental, health, and safety concerns are addressed at a minimal and affordable cost, either to the purchaser or to the seller, unless the systems have not been maintained, and, according to recent numbers, approximately 40% of the inspections which Tom mentioned completed resulted in a failed inspection report. Private water wells, as the sole water source for a property, and sewer systems, lagoons, septics, alternative systems, lateral beds, lateral fields, and so forth, may not affect just one particular property, but can have devastating effects on adjoining properties or those within the water flow lines or natural drainage. Groundwater contamination, whether coming from agricultural runoff, feedlots, unsealed water wells located too close to septic, lagoon waste lines, or corroded or broken waste lines. Contamination does not simply stay on that one property. Radon and wood-destroying insect remedies are normally single property issues. Groundwater spreads a long way. Number two, the environmental health of our entire community, county. As a leader in the minimally 4 county areas surrounding Wichita, Sedgwick County has been looked to for guidance, for knowledge, for the how-tos of many local environmental concerns. Repealing this inspection code and making health and safety a negotiable item for the public does not seem like a good answer. Many people, including some of the licensed persons who are called on to represent buyers and sellers in real estate transactions, do not understand the implications of a failing wastewater system, the sometimes prohibitive cost to replace, the unexpected cost to health and welfare of existing and future county residents who could potentially be put at risk with contaminants not being identified because an inspector has been paid an additional amount of dollars to take a water sample from the house next door whose owner has an automatic water chlorinator in place due to the high levels of bacteria and nitrates in the area. Excuse me, the Benadryl's kicking in. Since the casing of private water wells is not indestructible, and since there continue to be sandpoint wells as water sources located in basements which are subject to contaminants from rising water tables and weeping cracks in the concrete floors and walls of basements, with no requirement for an inspection coming from a governing authority, as one lady told me recently, "This water never made me sick, so why should I allow anyone to take a sample?" If the elimination of government overreach is the ultimate goal for the Commission, the question must be asked then whether this is the platform, and if so, what would be the expected result. Repealing, rescinding, implementation, if you should decide to move forward. As we hope you can see, the individually licensed brokers and licensed agents here take their responsibilities to the public and to each other very seriously when it comes to education concerning health and safety issues. We also hope that you understand that no two properties identify or inspect alike when it comes to private water sources and private wastewater systems. We hope that when considering the long-term effects, that repealing an authoritative nod from our county that has to do with the health and safety of its rural residents, east to west, north to south, you'll weigh heavily the chaos and tremendous amount of adjustments that would have to occur in order to move forward. Licensees, lenders, appraisers who make requirements for securing financing, buyers, sellers, insurance companies, all have a huge stake in the decision that you're preparing to make. We have approximately 1,840 real estate licensees who serve the public in our area. Given the magnitude of that number alone, given the time involved in getting the word out to brokers and licensees concerning the repeal and how they move forward safely and with minimal liability, given that there are a few industry persons at this time who would be willing to take on the responsibility of making and signing a statement concerning the functionality and safe usage of a private well or wastewater system that would be defendable in court action, the amount of time between repealing the code and the implementation date would need to be extended far into the future. We are not asking for more government regulation. Most of us would prefer to have as little government in our lives as possible. We're simply asking for the county to maintain its capacity to do the inspections when properties transfer. Something as important as the health and welfare of the county's citizens as they choose to live their lives in Sedgwick County should not be considered government overreach. Consequences to actions. The failure to have an educated public if there is no governmental resource. Increased liability for all involved in a rural transaction. Deep pockets rule. Substantial increase in the initial cost for inspections and startup training of those responsible for inspecting, whether to be licensed or certified. Whose responsibility will it be for failure to implement, and where are the teeth for the lack of action? Long-term environmental liability for the Commission's actions. Concerns about health and safety of the county and the residents should be a priority for the future growth of the county. Deregulation of codes that deal with health and safety area residents can have far-reaching effects over our personal desires and ambitions for government. And with that, I need a drink of water. But do you have questions, or would you prefer that others speak to?
Yeah, if you'd be willing to stand for questions at the end, I'd like to go ahead and hear from the other speakers as well, and then we'll ask you to come up and answer any questions if the commissioners would want to call you up. Is that okay?
Very good. It's perfect.
All right,
Thank
let's go ahead and give you a chance to get that drink that you need. And I'd like to call up Sandy McRae. Okay, doesn't need to speak. And then how about Richard Marshall, if you're here?
Live at this point.
All right, thank you so much. How about Tim Holt?
Excuse me. I'm Tim Holt. Sue and I talked last night about, it was the first time we had a chance to talk what each one was going to say. She went first, and I said, well, I'm just going to go up here and say whatever she says is what I say. But she pretty much covered everything, but I wanted to cover a couple of things differently. Normally, as a group, realtors are in favor of no government interference or regulation, and in a lot of cases are ready for deregulation. But when you're talking about health and safety issues, that's really for all residents of the state and the county, and in the state, but particularly Sedgwick County. Contaminated wells and faulty septic systems, they don't really affect just that property. Contaminated water, groundwater doesn't know property lines. It doesn't know it's supposed to stop at this property line, and so a neighbor's line. And with the age of our systems in the rural part of the county, there's a lot of failures, and as they saw from the 40 or 50%, I'd say probably at least 40%, probably higher than that if we did testing on every system out there. But they just don't know the boundaries, and so it's going to affect your neighbors. It could affect miles away. An example would be what we just dealt with the Tyler and Maple issue over there, with having host homes had to go on city water. And now I don't know, the report they had came out last night where we're talking about Maple and Mays over in the Dell. Now there's contaminated. Granted, that's not groundwater, but it's groundwater contamination, not necessarily from septic systems, but that's an example of how groundwater has no boundaries, has no property lines, and so we need to be concerned about it. And with the ordinance, who knows how many problems without this ordinance, how many will be discovered. Being fiscally conservative, we usually are for any cut and savings and cost savings to taxpayers, but from what we understand, or explained to us, there is no budget savings for the county. There's no positions that are going to be eliminated. Those people are still going to be there doing something, so they're going to be part of the budget. And the fees charged right now are supposed. It's been a zero balance. I mean, whatever they charge covers the cost to the county, so it's not like we're asking taxpayers to bear the burden of the transfers and so. And if the fees need to be increased after your audit, I think rather than go through the turmoil and have an unknown, I think that if we had to, we probably would rather have the fees be increased and have it still done by a government entity. And we don't have, because I've had people, and all of us have had people say, well, why do we have to do this inspection? And the biggest hammer we have is it's a government requirement. They can't say, well, I don't really want to do it, like the one lady, and I had another one say, well, my septic system's fine. I added laterals and everything, but still I don't need to get it inspected. The biggest hammer we have is saying it's a government regulation and it's required for health and safety. And so, and it eliminates a lot of our arguments and that we would have with our buyers or sellers, because they're looking for ways to cut their costs. And sellers in particular are looking for ways to cut potential costs, particularly in some cases if they know their system's on the borderline anyway. So, like I said, we're really in favor of limited government oversight, but it's when you're talking about the health and safety of the people and the taxpayers, it's really a factor that the government oversight and regulations is necessary. And I think we deal with a lot of government regulations, and there's a lot of them we'd like to see go away in other areas of our business that aren't going to go away, but this is one we really feel is important that you guys maintain, and we appreciate your time. So,
is it H-O-L-T, Mr. Holt?
Yes, H-O-L-T.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Holt. Appreciate your comments this morning. Is there anybody else from the audience who would like to speak on the agenda item this morning? All right. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Charles Peaster, and I live 9453 North, 135th Street West, which is in the county. I'd like to know the people that are here to speak today. How many of them live in the county? None of them, probably. I've got people up here telling me, you live in the county. I've lived at my house since 1979. It was the old Combs Poultry Farm, originally built in 1918. When we bought the house, it had a well and a septic system. The Combs Poultry Farm was still in place and still working. For 4 years, they continued to raise chickens and sell them, and then they quit. There was 30 acres of farm ground there. A realtor came in and bought the farm ground and split it up into 1.5 acre to 2.5 acre lots. In order to sell those off and put modulars or trailers on them, they had to have the county come out and perk test the ground to see if it would handle septic systems, which it did. Those people there are living there. I think the poultry farm closed in, well, about 4 years after I bought my house, which was in '79. I've lived there during this period of time. I live across from a dairy farm. They milk 100 head of cattle. There's a cornfield, a milo field, a wheat field, or a bean field right across from my house, because that's part of their farm ground, and depending on what they plant year to year, they plant there. And then they spray herbicides, and these people want me to have to pay if I want to sell my house. They want to come out, and in my understanding at one time, if they came out and checked it, and you didn't sell it within 90 days, they had to come back out and inspect it again, and it cost you to do this. Now, these people live in the county. I'd like to know. I live on the aqueous beds, by the way. Never had a problem with my septic system. Had a problem or two with a well pump, never with the well. But yet they want to keep this in place, and it's the realtors that want to keep it in place. Why? As an individual living there, if I decide to sell my house or one of my kids take it, does that mean that they're going to have to come out and check the system? If the kids come to live in my house or take over, and they decide to pay me, that's a sale. In my opinion, why do we have this? This is another government infringement on my ability to do what I do. When I bought the house, I didn't have to have the system checked. I didn't have to have the well checked. But when they sold the 30 acres off and split it up into acreages, they had to have the ground perk tested. And then the number of houses now, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15. 15 other properties behind my property on 30 acres that was farm ground are poultry farms. I'd like to see this repealed. I live in the county. Does it directly affect me? No, not unless I go to sell my house. But this is another government regulation. Farm Bureau, which is my insurance company, from time to time offers to test my water for free at the Sedgwick County Fair. If I'm having a problem with my water because of the farmer across the field, across the road, that has a dairy farm, the one thing that I know about them is that if he decides, because his farm is still in the family, if they decide to sell the dairy farm, the next dairy farmer that comes in there because he didn't originally own it, the state's going to force them to create an area for the runnage out of the milk barn to a not a septic system, but a lagoon. And the state's going to do that. As long as it's in the family, it goes the same way it has for 40 years. I appreciate the ability to talk on this. A lot of these people, they say they live in the county. When's the last time they had their septic system pumped? When's the last time they've had their water well checked? I get mine done on a regular basis, and only 2 people living there is myself and my wife, and both of us are elderly. If you call 70 elderly, thank you and appreciate the chance to talk.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peaster. Is there anybody else in the audience this morning who would like to speak on the agenda item? All right, seeing now, I'll bring it back to the board. Commissioner Peterjohn.
Well, thank you. I'd like to get a clarification first. We were handed out some information that was just said our concerns, and so is this, I want to understand exactly who I've gotten, if it's representing Mr. Holt or
Mr. Peterjohn, those were my thoughts that I put together yesterday afternoon in order so you'd have something in front of you in case I lost my voice.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to, for the record, to have it listed here, and wanted to know when it says our concerns, I wanted to know exactly who are trying to get our an understanding, and are you representing anybody besides yourself here this morning?
I do work for the J.P. Wigand Company. I am a member of the Kansas and Local Association of Realtors, National Association of Realtors. So 37, 8, I don't have my calculator with me. Lots of years of experience come with these thoughts.
So, well, are you representing J.P. Wigand as a corporation?
I am not.
Okay.
I have, though, been in touch with the president of the company, vice president of residential sales, and who forwarded our information to Nestor Wigand, but I have not talked with him. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to embarrass them too badly.
I think you're doing fine.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to understand because for the record, Mr. Stoltz and myself had met with a number of realtors, and I was interested in terms of everyone who's involved in title transfers, and whether it's in the financial side of it or the real estate side or buyers or sellers, wanting to understand exactly who is here and who's testifying and whether they have an official position on this or not. So just wanted to get it on the record because I think that's important regardless of what way this commission goes forward with a decision this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Peterjohn. Any other questions? I think you can have a seat unless someone calls you back up, but thank you again, Ms. Wenger. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Commissioner
Well, I was around in 2006 when we adopted this, And we had about a 8-month, as I remember, about an 8-month conversation. And we had wastewater specialists, our own environmental staff, we had realtors, we had folks that were part of the title transfer continuum. We had a lot of dialogue about why this was important. And then we put it through the filter of our health department and folks that were concerned with the environmental part of it. And we came to the conclusion that, number one, our staff could do those inspections and be a moderation for this process. And we've done it for 10 years. I've had virtually no complaints from realtors or practitioners of wastewater treatment systems, alternative plans, lagoons, laterals, whatever, over all these years. In fact, just the opposite. Practitioners that put them in the ground, that have to service them, that work on them, are very pleased with Sedgwick County staff, with Tim Wagner and his group, on how they do the inspections, how quick they are to do the inspections, how thorough they are with inspections, and how they work with the health department to ensure the health of people. I live on the south side and represent the south side, and if ever there's groundwater issues and lateral issues and water issues and failures, I know all about it. And there could be in the future, because of high groundwater tables, many failures on the south side. And I would just as soon have health and safety practices embedded in a code to be sure that it's standard for everyone, as opposed to putting it out so that we don't have that standard of operation and procedure. So I'm not going to be in favor of going away from what we're doing presently, or we're repealing this. I think it's served our community well. I think our realtors that I've talked to certainly believe that, and many of the practitioners that I talked to, both casually and formally, are not for this, so I'm not going to be for it today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Norton. Commissioner Ranzau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got talk about several issues here. First of all, I appreciate the comments from everybody who spoke today. I think for me, the primary stakeholders in this issue are really the homeowners and the home buyers, prospective home buyers. I have had multiple people complain to me about this issue and how they've been treated by the county when they've tried to sell their homes. Quite frankly, they just feel like they've been victimized by the government at times and forced to do things that are unreasonable. And I've been involved in some of these things, and I think they're right on some of these occasions. And people have been forced to spend thousands of dollars unnecessarily. And we really have an inconsistent model of how we do inspections when homes are sold. Now, I want to make this very clear. We're going to continue to do inspections when things are installed or remodeled. You have to get permits. We do that just like we do with any other thing. But right now, when you buy a home, the home inspection is done by the private sector. And then the buyer and seller negotiate what's going to happen. And I fully expect that same process to happen here. I don't believe there needs to be a law that forces the government to do it and keeps the private sector being able to do it. And I don't understand. We seem like we have a little bit of a double standard when it comes to inspection with respect to plumbing and electricity and a variety of other things with the home. The private entities can do that, and the buyer seller negotiate. I think that should be the same model across the board. There are lots of people out there that will do these home inspections and do them well. It's not that complicated. And, you know, I'm very cognizant of the health and safety concerns that are out there. If I thought this would hurt the health and safety of the community, then I would not be supportive of it. But I don't see how that's going to come from fruition. If I'm a realtor, I'm going to make sure my buyer or my seller gets a good inspection done. And that work will continue to happen. And I think we'll continue to be, community will continue to be safe and protected in that regard. But at the same time, I think the homeowners, sellers and buyers will negotiate what will happen, the costs, et cetera, and hopefully these complaints that I continue to hear about, of people saying that the government has been unreasonable with them, well, we won't, I mean, that problem won't be there. And like I say, I think the health and safety will continue to be protected. I trust the private sector just like I do with the other home inspections. As far as electric, plumbing, et cetera, there are lots of good quality people out there that can do this. And so that's kind of what motivates my position on this. And I think we are prepared as a county to provide some classes. We've talked to people. There'll be a transition period. Have some classes to show people how to do these inspections. So I think that the model that works in other areas, I think, would work in this particular area as well. I don't really see any reason why it wouldn't. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Ranzau. Mr. Stoltz, I got a couple questions for you. Can you mentioned two statistics at the very beginning of your discussion this morning. One was 40% of those inspected have some type of failure that needs to be remedied, and then there was another thing that you said. How many inspections are done per year?
We do. We studied the last 5 years, and 5 years ago it was about 450, 475, and we're up to, on pace this year, to probably do about 530. So over the last 5 years, we averaged 500. And then, and let me qualify, the 40% number is not necessarily failures; it is issues brought up. Now that includes failures, but it includes some maintenance issues that a homeowner has to go in and remedy. It doesn't mean the system's failing, it means it needs modification. So on 40% of the inspections, we're seeing something come up.
I'm not putting you on the spot here, but if you're able to break that down any further in terms of, like, is it lagoons that need to be, the weeds mowed down, the fence needs to be re-put back up around the lagoon, or is it, or maybe septic tank needs to be pumped out, for example. Are those the types of things we're talking about? Are we talking about potentially reconstructing the entire system? I mean, can you please describe that?
Sure.
That 40%? Some of the
the minimum number of those would be reconstruction. What we're and there's 3 waste systems used in Sedgwick County. There's Mr. Holt already mentioned them. There's alternative systems, of which we hardly see any failure. Those are good systems. They're relatively new, and if maintained properly, they will last a lifetime. Then there's lagoons and septics, and the failures and the issues that we begin to see up generally fall into one of those 2 categories. And we all know you have to maintain lagoons, and both of these systems, lagoon systems and septic systems, are not meant to last forever. They're going to have a life and a death. Average septic system in Sedgwick County, 20, 25 years, and then it's time probably for renovation. So when the inspectors go out, they'll see a number of things. We do, on a septic system, part of that inspection requires the tank to be pumped so the inspector can look and inspect the inside of that tank. So that's happening at the same time we're doing the inspection. And then maybe there's a water line issue, maybe there's a tank issue, improper drainage of the laterals, and on lagoons, cattails or other types of environmental issues in the lagoon that has to be modified or taken care of. So when we talk about the 40% of the issues, we're mostly talking about lagoons and septic systems. And between those 2, Commissioner, I don't know which is more or less.
So within that 40%, okay, a lagoon is designed, especially the older style that didn't have an inline septic tank, but the older style that had a lagoon that simply had a dirt surface and it contained everything that goes into that lagoon system.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything so one of these systems has been around for a very long time. Is there trying to formulate my question here. Would you consider that to be a system that needs to be updated in order to be transferred from one owner to the other? In other words, does that system pass the test?
I think it's a good idea that these systems when we go from point A to point B and we're transferring title, if I'm a buyer, I think it's a good idea that we look at those systems. The question that I have, and I think that's we're talking about today, is does government have to do that, or can private entities do that? I think it's a good idea. All for what these speakers brought up. I don't disagree with anything they said. There's health ramifications here potentially, and we have to take care of our systems. And the very first victim on a failure of these systems is that homeowner. And that's why when we're buying and selling cars or houses, it's buyer beware. You have to pay attention of what it is you're purchasing, and I think it's prudent to check those systems, because the very first victim, before it victimizes neighbors, is going to victimize that household. So I think from a public safety perspective, it makes sense to check these systems. It's just, I wasn't here in 2006, but the question would have been, should it be government or should it be private entity? And I think that's the part that we're discussing today. To answer your question, I think it makes sense to check the system, sir.
This reminds me of sprinkler systems, because we do require a periodic inspection of the backflow valves, because it's health and safety concern, and we let private sector do that, but it is required that it is inspected. So, you know, it's interesting to me. Someone may live in a house for 50 years and never have the system inspected because it continues to work, and yet there may be problems because they've never taken the time to have it looked at by anybody. We don't go in there and say you have to have a periodic inspection and you have to have it certified or anything like that. Pay a fee and get a piece of paper that says it's good to go for the next 5 years. I mean, those types of inspections are not required. So someone theoretically could live there for a lifetime and never have their system inspected. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. And as Mr. Holt mentioned, there's a number of systems out there that, unless we have a problem reported to us, we can't go out and inspect every one of these systems. The title transfer phenomena allows us to get eyes on about 500 of these a year, but we have thousands out there that, unless there's a problem or something reported to us, we can't inspect.
Any idea how many of these systems are in Sedgwick County?
The total systems out there, I don't have the number, sir, but it's several hundred, a few thousand. And as the city encroaches upon the county, a city of Wichita or city of Derby, as these cities grow, then they get brought onto city water systems. So our waste systems will diminish over generations, but that we still have several thousand operating systems in the county and in class 2 and 3 cities.
Do you have any idea how many times per year typically do we require a reconstruction of their system? Do you have any idea?
Because of title transfer?
Yes.
It would be the minimal amount, sir, and mostly what I give you would be anecdotal, but a half a dozen to a dozen times a year we'll go out and we'll see total failure, and I'm sure the real estate professionals in here can tell you the same stories. There are some things that we get out of, it's unbelievable what you see, and then we're going to have to require either a total reconstruction or just a total construction of a proper system so that a homeowner can live within Sedgwick County Health and Safety Code and Kansas Department of Health and Environment laws too. But those are, of the 500 failures, we're talking about a small number.
What happened before 2006? How was this handled then?
I don't have the history on that. I'm assuming that an inspection wasn't required. I did talk to some elder statesmen, and as we started researching this, and they said a lot of what Commissioner Norton, not calling you an elder statesman, Commissioner, but they said...
It's okay, Tom.
The inspections did not occur. And what ends up happening is people were, homeowners would get into a house, and the phenomena is a lot of people move from the city out to the county because it's just a different lifestyle and different culture. And when they get out there, they're used to everything working magically into the water system or septic system because they were hooked on to city water. Well, in county living, you own that system. And so there was an unfamiliarity with that. And I think that people would go out, and I think the real estate people would back this. If you leave a house set for 2 and 3 and 4 months, those systems may come up initially, but then they will fail in a couple, 3 months if something's wrong with it. So I think that a number of people became victimized by that, spent a lot of money on a house, got into it, were strapped as far as payments, and then boom, 2 or 3 months later, we have an issue that comes up, and these are costly, many of them are, and I think that they began to air that concern with real estate people, with government, and we get the regulation born from that.
These, you said roughly a dozen, let's just say, it's anecdotal, I get it, but those that were reconstructed because of the title transfer inspection, that was the reason why we went and looked at it. We ended up having to reconstruct that system because of something that was discovered, some type of terrible failure.
Mhm.
Were those systems technically working? They just weren't meeting the standards, or were they not working at all? I mean, what would be something that you would find there that would cause?
Well, many of the systems continued to work. I mean, if a system fails, we're going to know about it because some contractor is going to get called to come into the house to fix the failure. And as Commissioner Ranzau has already said, that has to be permitted and inspected as that is reconstructed or built new. So these systems are working for the family that's there at the time of the house sale. The question is, when we go in to look at it, it's in failure mode. It hasn't failed yet, but there's enough critical issue there that it's in fail mode, and then we have to cite that for them. We tell them about it, give them a time to remediate it. There is the same discussion that Commissioner Ranzau talked about between buyer and seller, and that's worked out. But at the end of the day, it has to get reconciled. So they're working systems, but in a failing capacity. And then another thing that can happen on this is when we go out and you have an existing system, and Commissioner Ranzau and I have talked a lot about this too. You have an existing system which is failing, and we go do the perk test of the soil, and all of a sudden they don't get to have the same kind of septic system that they had anymore, which is, we're getting a little bit off track here. But all of these dynamics happen in this title transfer inspection because it gives us a chance at least 500 times a year to get our eyes on something and take a look at a system. I hope I answered your question.
So you're saying that the PERC test would fail, even though it was acceptable in the past. Does it fail because it's an area that's been used for laterals for a long period of time, and the percolation doesn't work anymore? Why would it not pass?
The standards, the PERC test standards that we use today were not in effect 20 and 30 years ago, and so now we know more than we did 20 or 30 years ago. And if that soil's not draining at a rate that's compatible for a septic system and lateral system, then they have to go in with lagoon or alternative system.
What happens if they don't have enough land space for the lagoon and they don't have percolation for the laterals? Then what happens?
Alternative system.
And how long has that been around?
Just a few years. That's a new
So this is a
technique.
new opportunity, but a few years ago that wasn't an opportunity.
That's correct.
Since 2006, that wasn't around then. So
That's correct,
you could conceivably have a property that doesn't have percolation, doesn't have enough land. So then, before the alternative system came around, I'm not sure how you'd solve that problem.
Well, more and more, more feet of lateral lines required.
Okay, all right. I'll probably have some other questions or comments, but let's go ahead and go to Commissioner Unruh for now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Stoltz, if we were to take the action here and repeal the inspection code, then that would just mean no one has to get an inspection. Is that, or do I misunderstand?
That's a part of it, sir. What the resolution in front of you today would say is the county will continue to provide these inspections until November 1st, but effective when you vote on it, and after it's published in 1 week, you would not have to do it anymore. It would deregulate it.
So then it just has to, then it becomes just buyer beware, and it's up to the real estate agent and the buyer to recommend it, but it's not required.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Well, I think this is critical enough for public health, and it also has to do with the invasion of adjacent properties and that sort of stuff. If a system fails, that even if we did this, we would at least want to require somebody to make an inspection, it would seem to me. But moving on to another question, I thought I heard a comment that there were some complaints received about the government not doing a good job or being heavy-handed, or folks didn't like their interaction. Have you had complaints of that
I have
nature?
not personally, sir, but I don't doubt that there's been complaints over the years about that service. People, sometimes we have to say unpopular things when we do business on this type of an inspection, and I'm sure that some people do not appreciate it.
Okay, and our inspectors have to have some sort of certification, I suppose?
They do, sir, yes.
Okay. From your knowledge, is this requirement consistent among most of the counties in Kansas, or?
It is consistent with the contiguous counties of Sedgwick County. I don't know statewide if it is or not, but all of the counties surrounding us have title transfer inspection to some degree.
And it's required, and do their county governments provide that, or do you know?
I believe that is correct.
Okay. In your opening statements, did you say the wastewater advisory board was advising that we maintain our current policy?
Yes, sir.
And did you say something about the Association of Realtors?
Yes, sir, I did.
They also want us to maintain this.
Yes.
Okay, I guess a lot of my constituents or citizens don't want to call me. I have not had any contact about this. Anyone complaining about the way we administer it, or anyone calling me saying that they think this is an impressive regulation. I do give a lot of value, a lot of weight to the fact that our advisory board says don't change the policy, and the realtors who are involved in these real estate transactions say don't change the policy. So I do not believe that I can support the repeal of this, but I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other comments, Commissioner Peter John?
Yeah, so let me ask, understand, you talked about systems failing or problems with 40%, and that these only have a set lifespan of 20 to 25 years, roughly. I guess it's partially dependent upon how much usage they get. Can you go into more details in terms of the ones with problems, since we have different, whether it's lagoon, whether it's septic, whether it's one of the alternative systems, in terms of what we have here on failure, and tie it into what sort of training do the county employees have to have who do these inspections, and what sort of, based on our earlier comments, whether it's a certification or a credential, do they have to get this and have it? Because I'm struggling. We don't mandate that the houses be inspected by the county inspector. Termite inspections aren't handled by the county inspector. But we have this one area where we started inspecting 10 years ago and we haven't. So I'd like to get some more information, if you can kind of help me with that.
Sure. Let's talk about certifications first. There's 4 staff members that, well, they do a lot of things. They do some zoning work, they do wastewater work, they do well water inspection, and as Commissioner Ranzau brought up, we inspect every new or reconstructed system going into county and class 2 and 3 cities which have agreements with Sedgwick County. They are all certified water well inspectors, certified from state level, some national level certifications, and wastewater inspectors. They all carry different credentials and certificates, but they have to have base certifications. So they go through some training, some class, and some continuing education, like any other certification in the trade world. And all 4 of them have a little bit of different certification, but all are certified.
So what sort of training is involved? Are we talking about years of instruction?
I'm sorry?
What sort of training is involved? Does this involve years of instruction, weeks of instruction, months of instruction?
No, it's hours of instruction. They'll go to state of Kansas KDHE will put training on. There's some national accreditations that they'll go to and obtain continuing education to maintain certification. So it varies with the 4 individuals. All of the providers in the county have some certifications as well, and also are licensed as installers or whatever it is that they do. Nobody's out working uncertified in this field in Sedgwick County. So there's a litany of kinds of certifications they can get, and you can also train this skill to home inspectors, which we've talked about as well. As well, each of these inspections has a checkpoint, a list of checkpoints that the inspector will go through, and they do it the same every time. If it's a lagoon, we will check a certain number of issues on the lagoon operation, the physical condition, etc. If it's a septic system, we'll do the same thing, alternative the same way. And so they will simply go out and go through that process, inspect it, and we qualify it with the homeowner or the potential buyer, and real estate people will validate this. We tell them that we're inspecting, this is a snapshot in time. We are looking at this system today, and everything is operational, or you have these amount of problems. If your system's 20 to 25 years old, we give you information that tells you that there's a life and death of these systems. So if you have a 23-year-old system and we inspect it and it's working today, we give people the knowledge, the future homeowner who's maybe moving from a city, that this system has a life and a death and you are reaching the maximum of your life for this system. and just be aware of that. And it's really what this is all about, is just making people aware of what the current situation of the house is. So we hand out a lot of information, a lot of documentation, give them a snapshot in time. And we've had cases, 3 that I'm aware of since I've been director, where we've inspected, and within 6 months we've had failure there. And we passed the inspection. And that's the reason that we go through the education process with the buyer, that you have and on each of those 3 cases, those were old systems. So we go through that with each of them. We make sure that they understand what it is that they're buying, at least as far as water well and septic systems. And then we try to make sure everybody has the knowledge before we walk away.
You mentioned there are approximately 50, I think there was 6 that pump and 40 some who provide, who are involved in installing systems, I think.
Yes.
Are these individuals or companies?
They're companies, sir.
Companies.
And some are individuals with license to do that work.
Okay. And these people could get trained depending on, one of the concerns I'd heard was if we tried to go ahead and do this was there wasn't enough time to get people who would be in the position to make the transition. I wanted to make sure that that would be something that would be addressed, and I'm very flexible in terms of I'm not locked into this November 1st or any other date, but I am struggling with the idea that the private sector can do home inspections, the private sector can do termite inspections, but the private sector, because we've decided to regulate it, we can't. It's going to be a government function, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling with that as a factor here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Peterjohn. Commissioner Ranzau.
Tom, these checklists you talked about, these are things we can and will provide to home inspectors who want to do this and installers, et cetera. Are you going back to the certification? Is there a specific certification that our guys have to inspect these wastewater? Or are you just saying they have certifications in general, and as a result of that, we think they're capable of doing these inspections?
That's correct. There's certifications in general.
In general, there's not a specific certification requirement to do an inspection for Lagoon that our guys have done.
I don't think on the specific system, no.
Okay, just want to clarify. And so, installers who install these things and know how to do it, if they have the checklist and the requirements, they'll be more than capable of doing those same sorts of inspections.
Yeah, and let me qualify that. The people who are installers, they're capable of doing that today. When I talked about future training, that would be for home inspectors who maybe don't have this certification, this expertise. They would require some training.
But the training that you think it would require for home inspectors, what are you talking?
Well, depending on the acts of the commission, I think it would be a number of hours. Depending on the act of the commission today, I think we would want to create curriculum, give some classroom training, and some on the site, on the job training, so that people can see those things. We haven't developed a curriculum yet, but I'm 8-10 hours.
Okay, that's general ballpark. I mean, it's not going to be a very, very long, extensive requirement if there was. Okay.
I have had some home inspectors that are interested in requiring that, depending on the action of the commission today.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, a couple more questions for you. When the county does the inspection, they have findings. Do those findings have to be remedied before we provide some type of a certification at a snapshot in time? Do we say once you create these remedies, we go back out there and inspect it a second time, and then we say, as of this moment, it's good to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so any findings that we have must be remedied before that transfer can happen.
That is the way the current code reads. Okay. Yes.
And that may be my biggest problem with this, because I think that as long as the buyer and the seller understand the condition of what they're getting, again, my concern is that we're involving ourselves in something under the guise of health and safety, but reality is there's lots of things that deal with health and safety, and we don't. I see inconsistency in how we've picked something out of many things to involve the government into this, and then we mandate remedies. Whether even if the buyer and the seller were understanding of the situation and they both agreed to it, we're getting involved in something that has to be done in order for that transfer to happen. So that is my biggest concern. Back to the transition of this. I feel like the 6 weeks is roughly maybe a little bit fast, I would probably be more inclined to support something that would allow us to provide the inspections up until the end of the year, and then we would stop doing it at that time, giving a longer, basically 60 more days for transition. So the private industry could start this immediately as long as they had the credentials. They again, if they had credentials, they wanted to provide the inspections. If the lenders required it, if the buyers required it, and they contracted for the inspection to happen, then the inspection could happen immediately with the private sector. I have no problem with that, but I would like to provide the service as an option until the end of the year. And in the meantime, we would provide training opportunities for people who are interested in providing these inspections. To me, that eases the transition concern, I think, mostly. Let me ask a couple other questions real quickly. Let me just say also, I have had, I'm the newest commissioner here. I've actually had people complain to me about this. I know there's one case specifically I'm thinking of right now. I'm sure you know the case where they had a septic system. It was in the front part of their property, and the title transfer inspection happened. It failed. They failed the perk test, and they were required to do something else. The only other option they had on this property was a lagoon, and they had to install a new lagoon and had to have a septic tank installed in series, and it was very expensive. And again, I would see this as a depreciation aspect of the property. Either it's got to be remedied, and in which case it costs the seller or the buyer, somebody who's got to pay for that remediation. The house isn't worth as much, as long as both parties know that and are willing to accept that condition and deal with it whenever they feel like it's the right time to deal with it. I'd much rather let the private parties understand their conditions and make that deal between the parties, and that's not mandating what has to happen there. But it's just my opinion, I guess. Well, I guess I'm ready to move forward personally. I've had at least 3 instances in my district in the last year and a half where people have contacted me not happy about how we treated them, and we've mandated things that they didn't think were necessary, and it was expensive. One gentleman had to refinance his house. It was not a title transfer issue, but he had to refinance his house. He's on a fixed income, and he asked us to go out there and allow certain repair to be made, and rather than just allowing the repair, we mandated an entire renovation of his system, and it would cost so much money, $15,000 if I remember correctly, that he had to get a second mortgage on his house. And I think there was other options available, but this is a very strict part of our code, and I guess I'm sympathetic to the buyers and the sellers, wanting them to have more ability to make decisions about what's best for them. So I would be willing to make a motion that we would adopt the resolution, but I'd like to make 2 changes. Well, I guess one change primarily. The implementation date that currently is stated as November the 1st. I'm trying to find where that is exactly. It's on the resolution, I believe. Okay, 1st day of November. Okay, 31st day of October. Okay, so section 1 where it says effective. The rescinding date, Mr. Stoltz, can you, the resolution that's being rescinded, this is a requirement that okay. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to make it where we would have the option of providing the inspection until the end of the year, and yet we would allow the private sector to do these inspections immediately. So
you'd want to change that to the first.
You want to change the first line of the section 1.
And that would be December 31st, 2016.
Okay. So there's some dates listed here on page 1 of the resolution. Section 1, I'd like to change the date from where it currently says 1st day of November 2016. I'd like to change that to January the 1st, 2017.
And then on this page here.
And then section 2, where it says 31st day of October 2016, I'd like to change that to December 31st, 2016. And then there's a third date, I believe, listed on section 3. I'd like to change that where it says, currently says first day of November 2016. I'd like to change that to January the 1st, 2016.
2017.
I'm sorry, 2017, excuse me. So without having to repeat all that within my motion, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to do? Okay.
Clerk.
All right. I have a lot more I could say on this. I feel like I've said plenty already, and I'll just say reducing regulations is one of those things that I think that a lot of people fundamentally believe in. And this is one of those things I think that the lenders can certainly require it, the realtors can certainly recommend it, and buyers and sellers can certainly contract to have these inspections done. I would say one other thing before we vote, though. That is in Section 2 of Sue Wenger's handout, she talks about inspector has been paid, quote-unquote inspector has been paid an additional amount of dollars to take water sample from the house next door. That sounds like fraud to me. If someone who's a home inspector that's certified and commits this type of fraud, what's the consequence of that fraud? Sue's got an answer. You want to come to the podium and give your answer, please?
Thank you. At this point in time in our state, there is no certification requirement for home inspectors. There is none.
This is the law that the governor vetoed this last year, right?
Correct. So we're very concerned.
Okay. Yeah, there is industry credentials. In other words, the home inspectors who have their own society that they credential each other and have standards that they have to meet. And if you found a home inspector that was committing a type of fraud, would they not? I'm sorry. Please, if you want to come speak, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
That'll be fine.
My name is Stephanie McCurdy, and I live at 13616 East Aysbury. I just moved. So I actually just did an inspection on my property when I moved, and I am a licensed realtor in the state of Kansas, as well as most of my family, which most of you probably know. This is a really important issue to us. This isn't just about necessarily an inspection, but it's about a health and wellness of our community. Like Commissioner Norton said earlier, there was a reason we put this in place to begin with. It wasn't because it was just pulled out of the air. This was something that was important to our community, about community life, about making sure that people were healthy in this community. But as Sue said, there's no regulation with inspectors here in the state of Kansas. So if you have a licensed realtor who has a client that's looking at a property, and then they go and get it's the buyer's choice of an inspector who they want to have. We don't regulate that. We don't tell them they have to have a specific inspector out to a property. So by having the well water and septic inspected by your city and your county, that ensures that there's going to be a standard maintained. So if you take away this resolution, there's no standard, because we have no standard for any type of inspection that we have. You were our only standard at this point to make sure that it's going to be transferred properly and in a good working condition.
Again, so unless the industry is unless there's some type of regulation passed by the state of Kansas, okay, then this is going to be done through the industry itself. The home inspector industry itself would provide the standards, and they would have to regulate themselves, so to speak.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, because there's no standards that are set forth by any entity for them.
Right, I understand that. Now again, the home inspectors generally work for the buyer. They're
Correct.
To protect the buyer, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if they were to do this, it seems to me they're not protecting the buyer. This is something they're trying to sell a house. They're committing fraud, not intending to protect the buyer. They're essentially, in other words, what it says is, take a water sample from the house next door, whose owner has an automatic water chlorination system, basically in order to pass the test, is obviously what it's trying to say here. So
yeah,
they're trying to sell a house.
What we're telling you is it could happen. They may not test the right water. They may not test the right property. I mean, it's just, there's no regulation at that point.
You're saying this is a mistake. In other words, someone would do this by accident.
It could happen because there's no regulation.
Okay, because it sounds like this is that someone's doing something intentionally fraudulent, is what this sounds
They could.
Okay.
They most certainly could.
All right. If you don't mind, I'll ask Sue some more questions.
In that particular instance, it was done intentionally.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're telling me that the home inspector or someone took a water sample from a neighbor so as to pass the test. It was done intentionally. It was fraudulent, so to speak, but it was done intentionally to pass the test.
Yes.
Did any consequence happen to the inspector because of this?
No.
I find that very troubling. The home inspection, home inspectors don't regulate themselves and actually have real standards then.
They do now.
They do now?
They do.
Okay, so this wouldn't happen today.
I'm
This could
sorry.
not happen today.
This didn't, no. Well, it could happen today. However,
But if they got caught, it would be consequences. Okay. And then the next question was, he said, quote, the lady told me recently, quote, this water never made me sick, so why would I allow anyone to take a water sample? Is she trying to sell a house?
she did sell a house.
Okay, so she would not allow a water inspection even though she wanted to sell the house.
In this particular instance, I had the buyer. I was a buyer representative, and so the common language in our contract added by us is that the proper governmental authorities, give or take a word or two, will be inspecting the property for whatever, whether it's wells or septics or lagoons. Excuse me. I put that language in item number 29, or she would not have gone ahead, her agent would not have said, you need to have this done. So we find out from that inspection, which was difficult to, which report was difficult to get, not because of the county, because of the seller and the other agent. We find out that she has a well in her basement, which is located less than 10 feet from the exit of the sewer line, septic line, from her house. It's a house built in the 1920s, so an old foundation. The seal around the well has been broken. There's whatever, dirt, contaminants maybe down in the basement. We find out from that inspection that the septic tank is located within less than 10 feet from the outside of her property. We find out from that inspection that the septic tank is full of tree roots. No guarantees about the lateral system. There's no record at the county because of the age of the system that there are laterals even out there. They're assuming so, but they don't know that, and there's no way for them to check. The seller produced a document that said she had the seller produced a proposal, which she said then she completed, for adding 200 feet of lateral lines to her system. Again, no record at the county. Date on the proposal was within the last 10 years. The septic tank itself had to be replaced. It had to be relocated feet from the house to allow for the distance needed between the well and the septic. She was an unhappy camper.
I'd like to just ask the question, though. She wants to sell a house, and if I was a buyer, I would say, testing that water is my requirement, or I won't buy the house. I'm not going to make an offer if I don't. My offer will not continue if I can't get satisfied that I'm buying something that I understand. So, if you're not willing to allow the inspection, then the deal's off. It seems like the seller's got all the power here. So, if the buyer the buyer has all the power here. If the seller wants to sell that home, they're going to have to allow the inspection. Otherwise, unless the buyer is satisfied that they understand the condition of the property, there's not going to be a deal made. So, the sellers can make requirements. I was involved in helping someone get through the process just in the last month. And by the way, I know a little bit about construction. In fact, I think I did such a good job inspecting the home that I feel like maybe the inspector, and we got a great inspector, by the way, but I felt like I found many of the same things that he found. And so I rely on my abilities somewhat. And again, if someone understands lagoons and septic systems, if they want to rely on their own wisdom, that ought to be one of the options as well. But what I'm saying is, this comment that you made here about someone not wanting to give a water sample seems to me that, again, if the buyer and seller are trying to negotiate and understand the condition of the property, the seller is going to want to give that sample. Otherwise, the buyer's not going to be satisfied that they understand the
And in this particular case, the seller did. Okay. And you are absolutely right. Those negotiations continue. It ended up, of course, costing the seller dollars she did not want to spend. dollars that, had the buyer not forced the issue, would have been required to spend in the future. A single person living in a 1920s built house does not have the same water usage as a young couple with 2 children. So immediately, even though her system was working, she had not gotten sick from any contaminated water, the next family who moves in has all of that expense to deal with, whether, if all the inspections are done and she decides she's going to
So had this not
sell.
been had this not been mandated by the government, would you have recommended to the buyer that they would have their water tested before they consider that to be potable drinking water?
Yes, because of all of the years in the business, these are the things we've run up against.
Sure.
All right? Yes.
Okay, and again, I think that's the way it should be. I think that the lenders ought to have their requirements. The buyers and sellers ought to negotiate whatever inspections they want to have. A lot of these inspections are not mandated by anybody, but they're available. You can contract for a home inspection. The one I was involved in last week, there was a radon inspection, there was an insulation inspection, obviously they were there, they inspected the HVAC and the foundation, and they inspected the plumbing and the electrical, and they did find a number of things, and those findings were negotiated as, to be repaired or to be taken as is between the two parties. And so I don't see, I'm still having trouble with some of the comments on your sheet here. I think that the issues of fraud and the issues of someone not willing to give an inspection, I think, are remedied already. Again, simply by understanding the nature of the transaction that's trying to be accomplished here. So, the buyer and the seller are going to want to work with each other. Obviously, they have to. Otherwise, it's not going to be a sale. And the issue of fraud, again, if that's what's going on, and when I know the state of Kansas is very much tuned into home inspection regulation, that's coming. It hasn't passed yet, but it's probably going to, in my opinion. And with the industry itself, if you find a fraudulent home inspector, they're going to lose their credential. They're credentialed by the industry, and there are standards. And so, if someone is committing fraud and they're found out, and then finally, I would think that anything that is considered fraud, there's a civil opportunity, a civil action potential, because someone's committing fraud. They're saying things that are knowingly untrue, and to me, there's going to be civil actions potentially that would stem from that. So there are consequences. Anyway, that's all my questions for you in the moment. I'll just say one final thing. I would say that I spent 3 years in England, and I had vehicles while I was there. In England, they required safety inspections, and every year I took my car down to have a safety inspection. By the way, it's periodic. You had to have it done every year. And every year they found rust on my frame and little things. I challenge you to look at any vehicle in Kansas. You'll find rust on your frame. It's everywhere. And over there they had to remove the rust and treat that rust. And if you didn't want to spend the money, then your option was to not drive. So I spent thousands of dollars every year to drive a car, and I needed that transportation. They were used cars, but because the repairs were so expensive, many times I drove at least twice. I drove a car up onto a flatbed salvage vehicle and salvaged the vehicle for the cost of the scrap metal because I couldn't afford the repairs. And it was done in the name of safety. It was a safety inspection. It sounds great, but we don't inspect brakes. We don't inspect tires. We don't inspect a lot of things in this country. And people transfer all kinds of things between parties. We don't get ourselves involved in it. I don't see the difference between. I guess the government there required safety inspections. We don't require them here, but I can see how, if you're going to go down this path to be consistent, you would have to say there's things that are safety related that we should be inspecting and should do it periodically and require people to let the government involve themselves in these issues and mandate repairs. We're very, in my opinion, inconsistent because we do it in this area, but not other areas that are similar. Maybe not similar in terms of it's not a home, it's not a transfer inspection, but I do see that other things that have potential safety risks attached to them that the government does not involve themselves in it. And my car inspections is one example. I can think of lots of other examples, but I won't do that. I'll make a motion in just a minute, but for now, Commissioner Peter John?
Well, thank you. I'm struggling and continue to struggle because we have a hybrid system at the moment where we've got a private party involved in home inspection, termite inspections, and radon at the moment. I mean, radon can be carcinogenic, dangerous. That's in the private sector. The moment the county's involved in this one level, there's discussions, I guess, about the state being involved in home inspection, and of course, at some point, I'm sure the folks in Washington, I'm not sure aware of anything that the federal government doesn't try to regulate at some point. I'm trying to understand here whether we should have a private system, a government system based on the county level, government system based on the state level, or at some other level of government. I struggle with the comments in terms of certain things that the private sector can't do. So if anyone out here, and I saw Mr. Holt wanted to placed his hand up, or the head of the Realtors Association, Mr. Marshall, want to come up and tell me where the appropriate level of regulation is for this commissioner. I mean, there'll be a new person up here, at least for District 3, come January next year, and they can take this up at that time, or maybe revisit it at that point. January is normally a fairly quiet month for property transfers based on the data I've seen. But if there's a point in terms of where we need to have the regulation, should the county be regulating home inspections, termite inspections, whatever? I'd sure appreciate some input. Thank you for coming to the podium, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, commissioners, for giving us the opportunity to present this, bring this forward. I think from the standpoint of the Realtors Association, where we sit on this, and listening to all the comments brought forward by our experts inside of our own industry, and then your comments back, I think a couple things. My comments would be this. Based on some of the reconciling differences that you all are struggling with, or some of you are, and understanding this, I think it might be prudent to take a step back before you make any decision today, would be my recommendation. Do a further study on the issue. I think the fact that the home inspector industry is not regulated used to be with ASHI certified inspectors. There is no, I mean, there's an ASHI certification for home inspectors that exist, but it's not a requirement of the state of Kansas. So to put that on this issue, I think is potentially puts the real estate industry in a liability position to the clients that they represent, which is a concern of ours. I think it also puts the county in a situation where you could have, as everybody has said, a health issue going forward that will basically purge out into other properties that are not have a compliance issue. So I think what I'm hearing, sitting there listening through most of this discussion, is I think it's going to require a little more investigation on the part of all sides. Perhaps we all sit down and hopefully educate each other on your concerns as well as ours. That's kind of where I'm standing.
Well, I'm looking for hopefully some clarity and consistency, because for a lot of people the most important transaction they're going to be involved in is acquiring property, and we want to have a system in place that where there's clarity and there's an understanding in terms of how things operate. And you know, if government's the one who needs to be involved, and we can argue about whether it should be the county or the state, if you know, that's the source. I mean, government does such a good job in so many other areas of regulation in the part of some parties. I struggle with that because I see the private sector much more effective and much more innovative and much more responsive. And so in terms of
you hired too well. The two guys you have employed they're too good. You hired too well. That's the
well,
that's a compliment.
I appreciate the compliment, and I'll have Tom pass it along to his staff. But having said that, you know, I am looking for, I'm trying to give us a comparative advantage. if there's a way that Sedgwick County can be a leader and provide an opportunity for being not only the best county in Kansas, but the best county in the country, and in terms of a way that we can make the process better, that's the direction I want to take it. And I struggle with the fact that there have been concerns in terms of from both ends, and I'm hearing you all saying there is a problem if we proceed down this way, but I think there's a problem if we retain the status quo. And we have a hybrid system at the moment because part of this is private and part of this, and it looks like from hearing my colleagues, we're looking at there's a split decision up here on the bench too. And so for a lot of folks, I'm wanting to understand where we want to take, where this procedure needs to be, because sometimes in terms of government, how long it takes for us to be responsive. I look at the healthcare area. There's great trepidation that I have because, and I realize I'm stretching my comparison here, but government's responsiveness to problems with healthcare, just the VA system, to throw out one example, I think we do a much better job here at the county level, but I'm not convinced that this can't be done privately, and if we have an adequate transition time and the amount of training that's needed, and if we're going to operate under a rule of law and clarity here. So
I think, as Mr. Stoltz said, with the numbers, and you did specifically ask him about the 43 inspectors and so forth, and the different arenas that he encompassed. Installers and different things. My understanding is that those folks have all not agreed that they would participate in a private sector enterprise. So with that, I mean, I would like to see, again, my thought would be take a deeper dive into that before a decision's made, because if there's only 2 out of the 43 that are willing to do the work, then you're going to have transactional closing issues for your entire community or the county that you're not going to be able to secure real estate for people with time delays. Because, I mean, you have people now, but it works. The system's in place, it works. With private enterprise, they're going to have to get up to speed, and if not every one of them wants to participate, which is my understanding, I think we could have a potential problem.
Well, I mean, if no one wants to do it, then I think you're right. But I mean, if there's a demand for it, and then the price is right, people will get the training needed to do it and do it. I think. I don't know if 2's just the number, but I appreciate you coming up and providing that thought and suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ranzau?
Yeah, Tom, I have a question for you real quick. How many inspectors do we have that do this?
There's 4 FTEs that take a part of this, but they have other duties as well.
So, okay, we have 4 inspectors to do some of these.
That touch this,
it's
yes.
Not like there's 4 full-time people.
That's correct, that do this.
Okay, but we have 4 inspectors. Okay. Well, I want to address a couple things because I want to make sure we don't give citizens out there watching a false impression. I don't want to give people the false impression that these inspections will stop happening. Inspections will continue to happen because we have professional realtors in the community who will represent their clients and ensure that inspections get done. Okay? Now, it's just that it will be done by private sector people instead of a government worker. I also don't want to give the false impression that quality inspections cannot or will not be done by the private sector, because I believe they will, and I think our realtors will ensure that quality inspectors do the work. And I also don't believe this will have a negative health and impact on the health and safety of our community because of that. Like my colleagues have said, there's lots of things that are inspected by the private sector that can be health and safety related. Water damage, mold. A lot of people are concerned about mold, radon, electrical, plumbing, termites, structural, variety of other things that affect health and safety. but it's done in the private sector. And we've kind of cherry-picked this one particular point, or part, I think, unnecessarily. So I think quality inspections will be done by the private sector. Now, as far as the number of inspectors, your point is well taken. And we have potential of at least 40 installers to do it, which would actually be, 10 times the number of inspectors that we have now. Now, not everyone may not want to do those inspections. But if we only have 10% of the people do it, that's what we have now. I bet you we'll have a lot more people willing to do the inspections than what we currently have here at the county. That being said, this compromise that the chairman has suggested that we extend this out to January, December 31st is how long we'll do it. That gives plenty of time. That's 3.5 months to find out for sure if there's plenty of interest in the private sector for people to do these inspections. So I think I understand the concern about the numbers of inspectors being available in the private sector. I don't think that will be an issue, but if that ends up being the case, and we'll be able to figure that out within 3.5 months. Correct me if I'm wrong. If we do this, Tom, this means the county will continue to do inspections through the end of the year, but private sector entities can also do this as well.
Correct, sir.
Okay. So we'll allow the dual capability basically there if people are willing to do that, which I think is a good plan as far as the transition, and I'd be supportive of extending that time. So once again, I don't want to give some false impressions out there as if, the inspections will continue. I don't think there's a realtor in the room here that won't expect an inspection to get done, and will ensure that a quality inspector does the work on behalf of their clients. So I'm very confident in that. If something changes and that doesn't get to happen, I guess maybe, I don't know. I have faith in the professionalism and the ability of the realtors to make sure that gets done on behalf of their clients. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I think it would be a good idea if we took the suggestion that we hold off on this for a while and get more input from the professional organization and from perhaps people that might be involved in inspections. There's no real reason that we have to decide this today. If we do decide it today, it's clear from the resolution that these inspections will no longer be required and they will just be optional. And I think that's a consideration that we have to understand. Just a couple of things in summary. I'm not going to take a lot of time, but right now, Mr. Stoltz is head of the Metropolitan Area Building and Codes Department, and we have bookloads and reams of regulations and requirements where we go out and inspect and make people comply. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this is not inconsistent with that. This has been proven, I think, for the last 10 years, something that's acceptable and effective policy. It is consistent with the adjacent counties, as has been said. It is supported by the Realtors Association and by our own advisory board, and it does have an impact. It is a consideration for public health and public safety. And I think at least we should defer a decision, and if not, I will not be supportive. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments or questions? Commissioner Norton.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we have a substitute motion to defer this till after the first of the year to give plenty of time to discuss it with all the parties concerned, not only practitioners, realtors, our own stormwater management board, but the health department also, and that we bring this back to sometime after the first of the year.
Second.
Did we actually have a motion earlier? I did make a motion?
Yes.
Okay. So this is now.
Was it seconded?
No.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, so we have.
I didn't realize he actually made a motion.
I didn't think I did either. It's okay. I'll say that I did make that motion and it was seconded, and then we have a substitute motion. I would like to move forward, but let me. If the underlying motion does pass, the initial motion does pass, if we find out that the private sector is not stepping up and providing the inspections, we would have the opportunity at that time to extend our alternate government-provided inspection service at that time. So I guess in the interim, let me ask you, Mr. Stoltz, in the interim, if we provide the inspection, are we still going to mandate remediations to the system before the transfer can be completed in the interim? Because in the private sector, they'll probably create a snapshot in time, but not necessarily mandate corrections. So the private sector would provide a status of what's going on there, but not necessarily mandate corrections, whereas we would.
I think that if you pass the resolution as written today, which no longer requires the inspections, but we continue to do them and we find remediation out there, I don't see how we can enforce or go back and require that remediation.
If we pass the underlying motion, does it still provide us an opportunity to provide inspections? Let me say it this way: current law, current code requires the inspection, and we're going to move into a position where the inspection is an alternate option for the buyer. We're not going to mandate during that period. We're not going to mandate remediation. We'll just simply give them a snapshot of what the status is of their system during that period.
That would be correct.
And
After
then
September 14th.
Then after January the 1st, we would stop providing the alternate option because of the. Okay.
Yes.
If we wanted to revisit this, say the private sector hasn't stepped up and not providing the service, and now we're concerned that if we stop, that there's not going to be someone able to do that. We could visit that at the time, could we not, and extend this out?
I don't see why we couldn't, sir. The resolution is not written in concrete. It's written on paper. We can change or modify or revisit anything that the commission says.
So during the 3.5 months, we would actually have a dual system where either option would be available to the consumers, and
or none. They wouldn't have to do any.
All right, Commissioner Ranza?
Just for the record, I'm supportive of the chairman's compromise to extend the deadline by 2 months to allow private sector to engage, as he said. So I won't be supportive of this substitute motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I think the substitute, I'll say, I'm not going to be supportive of the substitute motion because I believe that in 3.5 months we'll have a pretty good understanding of whether or not the private sector has indeed stepped up. And if they haven't done that by that time, I'll be surprised by it. But if that happens, we'll have the chance to come back and visit this again if we need to. So I guess I don't see a need to worry about that at this time. Let's let the private sector have the opportunity and see what they can do. And if they choose not to engage in this opportunity, then we have the chance to coming back and changing this again. Commissioner Peterjohn?
Well, I won't be supporting of the substitute motion. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? We have a substitute motion to, did your motion include a delay to a certain time or just delay indefinitely? I'm sorry.
Defer till after the first of the year to bring all the parties together to talk this out. I think the record will show who I thought the parties were.
Okay. And Mr. Stoltz, just for the record, when did this discussion begin? We started talking about this a while back, and can you give us a timeline when we began talking about this?
Me and the commissioners?
Well, when were the realtors notified? And it ever seemed to be the biggest interested party.
Sure. After somewhere in the June time period, we began talking about this, and I reached out to real estate very soon thereafter. However, I didn't get a chance to meet with them. There was some communication issue with the individual I had contacted on that, so I don't think it got to the group. So we didn't get the group together until July. I think Commissioner Peterjohn and I went sometime in the month of July, and then I visited with them again on a date in August.
All right. Commissioner Peterjohn?
Yeah, I was thinking our meeting was in August.
It might have been.
I think, but it was, I think, second week of August. I mean,
you could be right, sir.
It's about not quite a month ago.
So I guess, and what I'd say is that we've been basically, this topic's been out in the community and being discussed for roughly 3 months at this time to bring us to this point. It's been, you said June is when this began. We've talked about all of July, all of August. Now we're halfway through September, or partway through September. So it's roughly 3 months, roughly. that we've had a community discussion on this topic so far. I guess my opinion is that I don't think that the community is interested in realtors, at least. It sounds like they're not so much interested in the change right now. But again, if you give them more time, I don't know if we're going to get a different answer. Is why I see this. So anyway, I that's all my questions for you, Mr. Stoltz. Thank you. All right, so we have a substitute motion to delay this till after the first of the year. Any other discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
No.
Commissioner Ranza?
No.
Chairman Howe?
No. All right, we're back on the base motion. Any other discussion? Okay, are we clear on what the motion is, Mr. Yost, in terms of the red line changes to the resolution?
You changed the 3 dates in the resolution.
Okay.
That's basically all you've done, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yes.
So I'm making a motion we adopt the resolution with the 3 red line changes to the dates. And it was seconded. Any other discussion? Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
No.
Commissioner Norton?
No.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Chairman Howe?
All right, thank you, everyone. Next item, please.
Item M, report of the Board of Bids and Contracts regular meeting of September 1st, 2016.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Joe Thomas, Purchasing Director. On September 1st, the meeting of the Board of Bids and Contracts resulted in 3 items that we're presenting to you. I think I said good morning. It was really good afternoon. So, item number 1 is construct EMS Post 16 for Facilities Department. This recommendation is to accept the low bid from Bauer & Son Construction Company, Incorporated, in the amount of $738,600. Our item number 2 is boots and helmets for Sedgwick County Fire District number 1. This recommendation is to accept the low responsive bid from Municipal Emergency Services Incorporated and establish contract pricing for 2 years with 2 additional 1-year options to renew. And finally, item number 3 is the 12-inch capacity disc style brush chipper. It has a tow behind feature for fleet management. And this recommendation is to accept the low responsive bid from Fairbank Equipment Incorporated in the amount of $69,136 and establish the contract rates as listed for a period of 3 years. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and I recommend approval of the 3 items.
All right. Commissioners, what's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the recommendations of the Board of Bids and Contracts.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
And Chairman Howe?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent agenda.
Commissioners, Mike Scholes, County Manager, recommend you approve consent agenda items November through Tango.
All right.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? My only comment would be to Justin. Can you please talk about item O for just a moment?
Yes, Commissioners. Justin Wagoner, Assistant County Counselor. Item O on the agenda is an item to set a public hearing for the proposed adoption of the 2015 International Fuel and Gas Code. The thought behind that is essentially that there's a separate item that's been set for public hearing regarding the proposed adoption of the 2015 International Plumbing Code. Unlike the Uniform Plumbing Code, which does include provisions in it involving fuel and gas as it pertains to plumbing, the International Plumbing Code does not have those types of provisions and instead refers to the International Fuel and Gas Code. So the thought would be to seek to adopt the Fuel and Gas Code as it is referenced within the International Plumbing Code if you all would choose to adopt the International Plumbing Code. So the thought would be to prevent any potential gap in coverage on fuel and gas matters and being able to enforce the code on that.
Very good. And the date of this would be October the 5th, 2016?
That's correct. Okay. And the thought would probably be to have it on the same agenda item, I believe, at this point.
All right, that's all my questions. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Legislative issues.
Commissioners, are any discussion on legislative issues at this time? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Other.
Commissioners, any comments for other today? Commissioner Peterjohn.
Mr. Chairman, I know we've had a long meeting, but I'm just going to try and make this fairly brief, because September 7th is an important day in American history. And it's not because the first Miss America pageant was held here in the 1920s, but a fellow by the name of Philo Farnsworth did something rather notable today on that date in 1927. Basically came up with a device that put him in a huge pickle, in the sense that his new invention put him in a patent battle for years and years, and eventually ended up in the 1950s on a TV game show in 1957 called I've Got a Secret. Some celebrities tried to ask Mr. Farnsworth what it was that he had invented on September 7th, 1927. They couldn't figure it out, but on this date, September 7th, electronic television was invented. So it's an important day in American history. Just wanted to provide it for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterjohn. Any other comments for other today? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Executive session.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of County Commissioners recess into executive session for 15 minutes to consider consultation with an attorney for this commission, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, and that the Board of County Commissioners return to this room from executive session no sooner than 12:59, and that the executive session is required to protect the county's financial interests and right to the confidentiality of its negotiating position.
All right, second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. All right, we're in executive session until 12:59.
Okay, I'll try not to screw it up.
Production and broadcast costs for Sedgwick County Commission meetings have been underwritten by Sedgwick County. KPTS welcomes comments from the public on its broadcast of the County Commission hearings. Viewers are invited to write to County Commission Broadcast, KPTS 320 West 21st Street, Wichita, Kansas 67203.
You're watching KPTS, Hutchinson, Wichita, public television for South Central Kansas. We now join our regularly scheduled program, already in progress.
On an adventure, we're flying with the cat in the hat today.
We'll visit my funny friend, Dr. Giggles, to ask him about bones, wiggles, and jiggles.
Here we go, 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 go. On an adventure, go, 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 go.
Welcome.